Hello and welcome back to coverage of the third Louisville Cube League Cubevitational. This is the fifth and final video in this event, with each video covering one draft of the tournament, so please keep that in mind if you're trying to watch the entire event in order. If you haven't checked out the other videos in this series, or you just need a refresher, the full summary of the Cubevitational is available in the first video in the series, linked below. This video will be covering the final draft of the tournament, a vintage cube draft, played through a double elimination bracket, seeded based on standings from the 4 previous drafts. Another change is that these matches will be played best out of 5 rather than 3, with no sideboarding allowed until after the second game. Just for a quick reminder of where standings did end up after the first 4 drafts, we have Joey as the number 1 overall seed, Matt as the number 2 overall seed. Those two will each be receiving 2 buys through the bracket. Ditter and Bats round out the top 4 with 1 bye each. Then Jacob, Scott, Prose, and Brian will be playing in the first round of games. These matches were all drafted and played using the then current version of the Alpha Frog Cube, which will be linked in the description of the video below. Additionally, you'll notice no die rolls in these matches. That's because the higher seeded player always receives play draw choice, regardless of whether they're in the upper or lower bracket. For our first match, we'll be joining Scott, our reigning Cubevitational champion, in his match against Prose.
Hello and welcome to the final draft of our Cubevitational event. My name is Joey.
My name is Scott.
And I'm Prose.
And for the final draft, we have player draw decided based on the standings. This is the 6 and 7 match. So Scott had choice of play, no die roll here. Scott, why don't you talk us through what you're playing, since you were the first one to get us started here?
Yeah, so I have a Grixis sort of good cards with a Reanimator plan, Dark Depths and Thespian Stage. Just a lot of like solid cards, a little bit of Reanimation. Just trying to make the most out of every card I draw.
I assume that Vampiric was to find that Ancestral then, most likely. And
Almost certainly, yeah.
Casting it main phase in case we draw something we want to discard for Reanimate makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I also may be looking for lands, given that my second land was just that Dark Depths.
Fair. Prose, what do you have on the other side?
I'm just playing a red-white good stuff artifacts deck. Just a lot of value pieces. Got an infinite mana combo with Zerta, Fury, Solitude, and then cards like Othari for the finisher. So Caracas very timely there with the Dark Depths coming in on turn 2, though.
Yeah, Caracas feels pretty important in the matchup against Dark Depths and any reanimation shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
I just have a Blood Tithe Harvester and my second piece of power, with still more to come.
Meanwhile, I just have a currency converter.
And talking about the safety the Caracas guarantees, that currency converter the perfect thing to do with the maybe complicated game state from the other side. Just get your slow value.
Yeah, for sure. Magda coming in there. Not a ton. There is some top end with Cauldron Complete and Mirror Battlesphere to curve into, but
not the most impressive Mag.
No, not the most exciting one, and the deck certainly isn't necessarily as aggro as that card might lend you to think it is, but
right, hearing red white, seeing Magda, I would have assumed aggro, but currency converter definitely presenting more of a slow game plan.
Doing some more looting over there, but nothing of super value apparently. So just a rebel coming in.
Right, so far the currency converter being the real discard value we've seen so far, despite blood and faithless looting on the other side of the table. Also, Scott had mentioned the turn 2 Dark Depths slowing down his mana development, but we saw Mott Sapphire the turn after to catch right back up, so both players still on 4 mana on their 4th turns. Prose up to 5 mana if you want post-combat after getting that treasure token. And I believe that this token is representing the rogue from Currency Converter.
Yep, the 2/2 rogue.
A reminder that we've talked about in our previous drafts that is our Cubevitational winner from one of our previous Cubevitationals. So whoever wins this draft is going to be getting their own token choice. That's a kobold. Interesting from Prose, we see leaving up Crocus using the treasure to cast Pia and Kieran. I assume mostly to save Pia and Kieran Nalar.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. Although Fallen Shinobi here, kind of a beating. But I think it's just, wanting to keep Caracas up both for that and also for the Dark Depths. Doesn't have haste, but
Was the idea of not trading there just that you could throw one Thopter, no reason to give up both of them? Or was there something else at play?
I honestly couldn't tell you. I mean, Shinobi certainly wasn't on my radar. There is Academy in the deck, so there is a little bit of value in keeping my artifacts on the table. So it definitely could have just been that consideration. But yeah, I mean, maybe just the fact that I wasn't able to actually throw the Thopters at the time. I didn't want to just block for no value, but Othari, not a bad follow-up.
Very powerful here, keeping on that pressure. We said not aggro, but definitely when the opportunity presents itself, going to get in there.
Yeah, Othari, kind of an army in a can.
You mentioned Academy. Was there anything else blue going on in your deck?
There's a Fractured Identity, but I believe that's the only card. Looks like Fractured Identity and a Celestial Colonnade if needed, but
for the most part, Academy is just ramping mana off of your various artifact cards.
Yep. Yeah, just kind of a value. I had Mox Pearl, Mox Opal, Mistress Bauble, a Talisman, Currency Converter, a lot of ways to easily get it online. So
right,
very rarely was it an issue. Yeah, also Magda. So it's really just a value play at that point.
So we're looking for something big here from Scott. Crocus is down this turn because of casting Authority, so this is a chance to possibly reanimate something. It looks like that Xander's Lounge still up, so if we have a reanimate, could get something back. But it looks like we're just picking him up and going to game 2.
Yeah, reanimate's trickier to cast at 5 life too.
That's very fair. Do you remember, Scott, I know it's been some time since we played these matches, but if the Caracas was stopping you from doing anything there, or was the deck just not cooperating with you that much?
It was more of a cooperation issue. Caracas definitely very good against me. I mean, we saw the Dark Depths. One of my chief targets is Atali, so that also just gets gotten by the Caracas. But as we'll see as these games continue to play out, my deck is lacking in a few different spots. I've got a bit of an aggro package. I've got a bit of a reanimation package. None of these things are really fully fleshed out, so it makes for some really inconsistent draws.
Right. Last game we talked about Prose's ability to maybe transition along the spectrum of aggro, but still all those things are making artifacts, so contributing to the main cause, whereas maybe your transition between aggro versus your more combo hands a little bit more awkward.
Yeah, and there is like some slight overlap. Blood Tithe Harvester just does everything you want a magic card to do, basically.
Right.
But for the most part, I have like half of my deck that's trying to cheat big guys into play, and another half of my deck that's just like small creatures, good value kind of things, and the overlap isn't really there most of the time.
Robert the Rich stealing Authority feels pretty bad.
And here we're seeing a non-legendary creature hit the graveyard with the Troll Swamp Cycling. So if we get that back, starts some early aggression.
I think my reading count is up to 3 on that Robber the Rich already. Not really sure what questions I keep having about what it does, but I assume at least one of them is a question of whether or not it can play lands.
And here we see Mach Jet into Duretti. Duretti sacrifices the Mach Jet then to kill Magda, slowing down Prose's development by giving up a mana there.
Also lets him get in with the robber because I think that's probably a pretty easy block for me to make, but
Especially once Duretti's in play, for sure. I could see
yeah.
the argument the other way if he chose to hold on to the Duretti until second main phase.
Stoneforge Mystic getting Cauldron Complete the follow-up, though. I think definitely in a world where that, assuming Stoneforge Mystic was in my hand, I think that's a really easy block to make if that creature is alive. Because I just don't think you care about Magda at that point, but...
You mentioned having a couple different equipments, I believe, in your deck, but especially having Currency Converter here makes the Cauldron Complete the easy get because it has the best upside if Stoneforge lives, but if Stoneforge dies, it can still be looted away. It's not going to sit as a dead card in your hand. So I really like that pickup over one of the safer traditional lines.
Carnosaur taking out Stoneforge Mystic there, so... Oh, there's the fourth reading. Yeah, there was one island in the deck, which probably not the greatest thing in the world to draw.
But just a third blue source with the other two that you had mentioned to make casting Fractured Identity more possible and enable the activation of Colonnade.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's why, but with, I had Mox Opal and a blue Talisman. It doesn't really seem necessary, but...
Especially given that your color
so...
cost is somewhat restrictive. We saw
Yeah.
Seasoned Pyromancer get discarded in the first game, and you have a few casting costs that are not the easiest to hit, so a little surprised to see the basic island. This is Nettle Cyst, one of those other equipments we talked about.
And this is a big turn because if I hit land 5, I can attack with my robber and then cast Othari, which there's no Caracas on the other side of the board. So that seems like a thing I might be interested in doing.
Right.
Although post-combat Athari, not the best thing in the world, but definitely better
than... It's certainly suboptimal, but that's what you got to do when you're robbing the rich.
Oh, interesting play there. Duretti, I believe, could have blown up the artifact itself, which would have also killed the token.
Yeah, I can't defend that.
I am basing that off my understanding that Duretti can kill an artifact, but I'm pretty sure it can.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that was just a mistake.
Or creature. So yeah, there's the Othara you mentioned, Enlightened Tutor here. I believe I'm going to do a little bit of mild cheating here, where I put that card in my hand and then drew for Enlightened Tutor, so sorry about that.
Wow. And on top of it, my mistake is going to let you... Oh, I expected a... With that Mox Opal Tutor, I expected a...
Although
Identity.
You do follow up my cheating by alt casting a Mind Collapse on my turn, so I think it all just balances out there.
Would you believe that I learned about Mind Collapse's timing restriction like a week ago? Like, yeah. I've been playing Vintage Cube for so long.
Yeah.
I just thought it was an instant. I don't know.
I think with the more recent free spells being things you had to do on your opponent's turn, that's a somewhat forgivable, at least in my eyes, a somewhat forgivable slip up, as the Solitude we see exiled and all of the rest of the pitch elementals and force spells want to be cast only... Or not the elemental, sorry, just the force spells want to be cast during your opponent's turn.
Now a Thief of Sanity, can you just play with your own cards? I drafted mine, I want them.
Well, yours are really good too, though, so... Sharing is caring.
I'm just casting Cauldron Complete now.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a real problem.
It is definitely a clock, but kind of have to... I guess maybe I didn't have to go after Duretti here, but Only at 10 life, though, so the 4 power of attackers is not irrelevant.
But I think it's correct to go after Duretti here because of the equip of the Nettle Cyst that's still in play. I think it's going to be a 2-turn clock with a Cauldron regardless. So using this turn where you can't equip makes sense. But this flip of Fractured Identity probably spells Doom.
Yeah, another huge hit off the robber, although only 4 lands since we casted the Mind Collapse. I believe that was a question of timing on those 2 effects, but Robber of the Rich is when you attack, and Thief of Sanity is when it deals damage, so...
And can Thief play lands? Are lands an out here for Scott, or is it only spells?
I believe Thief says cast.
Okay, so only spells.
Right.
Yeah, it does. Robber of the Rich does as well, I'm fairly certain. Yep.
My big finish is Thraben Inspector.
Yeah.
Bummer. Sacking the clue immediately is pretty telling that I don't have much better things to do with my mana here.
You see, this is a very common technique, pulling the Thraben Inspector partway out of the sleeve to remind us that it belongs to Prose. You'll notice the same has not happened with, or no, sorry, that's the only one of Prose's cards in play still.
It did happen with Othari.
Yes.
But then Othari is...
Robber's been in play so long, I just assumed there was another one, but...
He hit a lot of lands. Here back for 2. Oh, just to empty my hand to play this Pyromancer.
And emptying your hand, if you're able to keep playing cards afterwards, would be nice to stop letting the Robber of the Rich pick your cards away.
Yeah. So Cauldron Complete going in. No good blocks there. Not that there ever really is with that card, but... Only at 6 life, though. Although now I guess we have a blocker with the Pyromancer.
Well, if you block with Hangerback Walker, that gives you +1 artifact.
Oh, and the Hangerback Walker, yeah. I forgot about
trades, which actually would give you lethal on the Crackback, I believe. The Cauldron would be 10, Pyromancer would be the last 2, though. There's presumably going to be blockers in the way. There's at least 1 Defender, I believe, on the other side of the table.
Still coming in, so maybe looking to cast that Fractured Identity, given that it's pretty easy blocks for it.
Considering a double block there, I think, just in case of some nonsense, but just deciding it's not really worth it, I guess. Yeah, so going down to 4. And yeah, I have to assume this means that Fractured Identity is happening here. No real reason to attack with the Robber otherwise, I think.
Unless we're able to cast... Is that a Battlesphere that just got hit this turn? If we're able to cast a Battlesphere and you're at 4, that is probably the more appealing option.
He already played a land this turn because he played the 5th land last turn, so I believe we're... Although, I mean, number of Moxen in his deck.
Or he could hit a mana accelerant spell off the top of your deck, right? Your Mots or your Monolith or something.
Yep. Yeah, so there's the Fractured Identity.
You just sort of vomited some permanents onto my side of the board there.
More.
And I also snuck in a Mishra's Bauble there. Yeah.
Officially more of my permanents in play than your own? I guess
not
if you
permanents,
don't count lands,
but,
yeah. Non-land permanents. There's Academy, so, I mean, I guess we had basically unlimited mana before, but now even more so.
Right, I mean, Nettle Cyst hasn't been getting equipped, so hadn't been quite enough, but...
Well, we know Othari is in hand, so makes casting it a lot easier. Oh, just Fury instead. Couldn't clear everything, so...
Maybe I missed it, but we might have missed a draw off of that bauble.
He did it on my upkeep, so he'll get it on his turn.
Ah, okay.
I hope I didn't miss the trigger.
Right, doing it on his upkeep introduces so much more time now before it could come up.
Big hit here from the flying guy wearing a nettle cyst here. And you do, it looks like you have enough blockers to like stem the tide here, and I'm just going to die in the air. We'll see if did I draw 2 there? Did I get my bobble trigger?
Who knows?
I don't know.
Yikes.
Definitely something to think about. Don't know if this is blockers to stay alive math or actually have something going on.
Bitter reunion.
Bitter reunion.
If those were
It's
your
like
only cards in
concealing-
hand, maybe not.
Concealing
Well,
Curtains was the discard there.
yeah. I mean, with Thespian Stage, Dark Depths with Bitter Reunion is, I guess.
Well, you have an
the
untapped
top you can
Caracas.
block.
So
Oh, and Caracas, yeah.
yeah, that's not an out. I'm looking at my deck here, and I have like a Fire Covenant that would be pretty good. Although at 6 life, maybe that's hard to leverage too. I don't know. I don't know that I was digging for anything that was actually in my deck here, but we'll see what I came up with.
Hey, man, you get the turns. You may as well take them.
Yeah, this is the final draft after all.
Mm-hmm.
Just digging again, that can't bode well.
Yeah. Yeah, so this draft is best of 5, not best of 3. So, but we didn't sideboard until after the second game. So those first 2 games were the same decks, and now this game, if there's anything in the sideboard, although it looks like I'm mulliganing a lot here, so may see some new cards this game. I'm mulliganing to 5, and Scott has 3 mana on turn 1, so that's rude.
It's you, baby.
I guess I have 2, so it's not that bad.
2 and the first threat?
This Hangerback Walker was, I think, my only real payoff for Infinite Mana with Zerta. Not quite as impressive as the Ballista, but not a lot of action here, it looks like.
Yeah, just putting a Triome into play and cycling another one for my big follow-up there.
Just cranking the Hangerback Walker there. Interested to see what these other cards are here. The body language suggests they're not great, but
Well, you also don't have that many of them after that mulligan.
yeah. I think there was at least one more land in there, but
Nothing to cast on 3 or 4 mana implies it might be Fury or... What was your other 5-drop again? Athari?
Athari, yeah. There's definitely some stuff that's not great to cast, but discovering the adversary here, have to... You can put that card in your hand, right?
Yeah, but you know, there's some consideration to just casting it, given that I don't have any spells in my graveyard, and your Hangerback Walker makes that.
Yeah, what's it going to do in play with Hangerback there?
Yeah. Untapped land. Oh, or just hard casting all of the dinosaurs this game. I got a Fire Covenant and a Grim Monolith.
Fire Covenant would have been great to hit if we had already killed Hangerback Walker.
Opting not to cast.
Oh, reading the other side of Galta. That's a spooky one.
I have so much mana.
That's true.
Oh, that Caracas puts an end to those dreams.
I mean,
Although
Galta every turn is pretty scary.
Atali.
Or Tali, sorry.
Yeah.
You said all the dinosaurs. I just assumed we were going to get them all.
We'll just have to keep watching. All right. Looks like we're going to spin the wheel again. Prose drops down to 4 life.
I assume the plan here to trade with Hangerback next turn.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if I'm going to be so bold with my attacks when that is an option that my opponent has. But fighting against this Caracas, I don't know that I have a ton of choice in that matter.
What a brutal hit Restoration Angel is.
Yeah. Prose, real sport here for letting me do all this silliness. All right, that's all I got. Your turn.
Not even finding anything with the Goblin Engineer. Hopefully Prose gets his 2 cards back, even though we didn't do the customary slipping them out of the sleeve. Here for game 4, so Scott would still need to battle back this time and the deciding game. Prose can seal it up here, though it looks like you're on a mulligan again this game.
I'm opening on those concealing curtains once again. I gotta say, after watching 3 games with my deck, the best thing I've done so far is just hard cast dinosaurs. So I'm not loving my chances in this draft.
In a vintage environment, maybe not the ideal strategy.
Yeah. When I opened up a piece of power in every pack, I was like, "Let's go, baby! I'm gonna crush." And then my deck has played out this way so far. I am not feeling very confident.
Of note from Prose's side, because as we mentioned at the top, Scott was the higher seed and had choice in game 1, and then Prose won game 1 and game 2. This is the first time Prose has been able to be on the play. Don't know if we'll see a particularly aggressive start. Turn 4 Athari counts.
Turn 3.
Versus turn 3 Athari.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Concealing Curtains would have been great against other draws that try to get off to an early aggro, but not this one.
Yeah, and of note, we had to tap it to cast the Othari, but there is a Crocus in play, so if I don't deal with the Othari this turn, it's going to be, Othari's already hard to deal with, but it's going to be that much harder if you can sit on that Caracas.
Even without the Caracas, I mean, once Athari attacks once, you have the Rebel to regrow it, so...
Yeah. Othari is a hell of a card.
Yeah.
Though, of note, the Accelerant isn't coming back, at least for a couple of turns, because of the Grim Monolith tap.
Well, it only costs 4 mana it's 4 mana and tap a Rebel to put her from your graveyard into play.
Oh, into play. For some reason, never mind.
Yeah, that card is a lot of text on a Magic card. Yeah, it does come into play tapped, but yeah, not.
It's very rare to see Ancestral Scoop, but that's what we saw there at the end. Is Scott drew 3 more cards, but just nothing that could answer that Othari, and it was going to just run away with the game. While it wasn't lethal the next turn, it was close enough that there were no outs for Scott the turn after. So that wraps up our first match. We're not going to do the customary scores, as we will continue to see these players through the bracket. There is a loser's bracket that Scott now drops down to, and there were some players with buys that are now coming into play, the winners of this round. I think we'll take a look at that bracket here in a moment, and then get into another match.
So the reigning champ goes down in the first round of matches played here, sending him into the lower bracket. where he'll be facing off against Jacob, who was defeated by Brian in the other match. We'll continue to follow Scott through the lower bracket here and catch up now in his match against Jacob. All right, so here we are back for our second match. So this is the first match in the lower bracket. So this is Scott versus Jacob. So both of these players actually lost their first match, but we had decided that we were going to follow Scott as the reigning Cubevitational champion throughout the bracket as long as he survives in it. So, Joey, do you want to speak a little bit on what Jacob's deck is here, as we already saw Scott's?
Right. We talked about the flexibility that Prose's deck had in the last draft. Jacob's deck does not have that. He is playing, as you would guess from this Elvish Reclaimer and Sakura Tribe Elder. We are seeing green ramp into very big creatures, just getting to sit 7-8 mana as quickly as he can. And I say that, but very interesting to see the Elder not sacked at end of turn. I wonder.
Yeah, who's the ramp deck here, really? I mean, we've got 5 mana versus 2 already.
That's a good point. As we see that swamp, maybe that's the reason why Jacob didn't sack the Elder on Scott's turn. If he didn't have a 4 mana play in hand and didn't have either of his splash colors ready, then it makes sense to hold on to the Elder until you draw one of your splash colors, because Jacob's playing essentially mono green, but he's got a couple of things worth splashing for. Happens a lot in Vintage Cube, where you can have a very straightforward deck for the first 2 packs and then open something busted in the 3rd pack that really makes you switch it around. Jacob getting confused on how Thief of Sanity works, accidentally giving himself a little bit of information that one of those cards is the Windswept Heath that Scott's not going to pick. But so no real unfair information gained, since he was going to know about that Windswept Heath here in a second anyway. But
maybe the real power move is to pick the Windswept Heath, actually.
In what way?
Send a message.
Yeah, just send a message.
Say, I don't even need any of your cards.
Yeah, so it looks like a pylon along with that Windswept Heath. Okay, and the 3rd card was that Nissa, so...
Right, from Jacob's side, when he sees Pylon put in the graveyard, that's a decent card, so implied right away that whatever else there was going to be good as well.
He goes and fetches a Gaia's Cradle, which is potentially scary, but on this board, he's barely keeping up with me at this point.
Cradle, another reason to have kept the Elder around, even though it kind of is net neutral. Oh, but with Pylon...
Regrow, oh yeah. Eternal Witness to regrow the Pylon. I think Jacob's going to reconsider here, because that card can target Planeswalkers. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Getting rid of the Thief of Sanity certainly is attractive, I'm sure, but...
It's definitely on his list of things to do, but...
Yeah.
Right, we saw him still resolving the Surveil from it there at the end. A little confusing as he picked up his deck.
I have an Instep Vampiric Tutor, which could get a Thespian Stage for this Dark Depths, could just get Ancestral Recall, as I'm wont to do.
Looks like it was the Thespian Stage, which...
I was wrong on what I just said. I said attack, but those creatures are not tapped to attack. They were tapped to convoke.
Convoke the Pylon, yeah.
So, no, it wasn't a late Surveil. It was just... That's why those creatures got tapped.
Oh my, and I have the Bitter Reunion?
Bitter Reunion as well, yeah. Looks like we might be wrapping this one up quickly.
Make a Dark Depths token. This is not an attack for 3 damage here. This is adding a mana.
Attacking for 20. Just take it all in one swoop. No Caracas this round.
Right, people who play Modern familiar with Bitter Reunion, giving haste in that format, very important. And we see here just able to represent the end of the game right away. Jacob again with an Elf on turn 1. This one actually makes mana, as opposed to the Reclaimer that didn't manage to do much last game.
And
And
turned a forest into a Gaia's Cradle. That's mana positive.
it was only because he didn't sacrifice his Elder, which also was a fairly neutral mana play.
Fair enough. Restless Vinestock here. So we see blue mana. Oh, we see an Oko immediately, so that answers that question.
Yes, Jacob splashing both blue and black, and Oko's the thing that made him splash into blue. He has a bit more blue blitzing than black, I think, though maybe it's about even actually. But Secure Tribe Elder and a couple of the other green ramp pieces make it so he can usually find that other color if he needs to.
A Dryad of the Elysian Grove to help out a little bit as well on the creature side, so...
Jacob just picking up his whole hand realizes mid-shuffle that he hadn't actually discarded the Oko yet, but Oko does find its way into the graveyard.
There's an Ulvenwald oddity. Just gonna come in and rumble for 4.
Yes. Jacob loves all of these questing beast effects. The oddity and the raptor, the red one that I can never remember the name of.
Paging Raptor.
Seeing a planeswalker on the other side, definitely wish it was a questing beast.
Here's a appropriately cast Mind Collapse.
Yeah, look at me go. That is a pretty big cost at this stage in the game, though. I'm down to, a colorless mana and a Grixis land here.
Still, Duretti's very good in this matchup, so just keeping his board trim means you can prevent the mana that's going to get him to his big creature, or make it so big creatures like Craterhoof are going to be less impactful. So feeling good untapping with Duretti still in play.
Fauna Shaman here. Oh, but just a reanimate on the Ulvenwald oddity.
Interesting. Sitting at a life total that would have made it maybe awkward to reanimate something bigger down the line, so it makes sense to just get your own beats going, getting back the oddity.
Looks like who wants to play with your own cards,
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting risk assessment to not kill either of the creatures with Duretti. Means Jay can cast any 5-drop from his deck if he wants.
Courser of Crew fix the play.
Not the biggest of threats.
Not revealing a land, though, so...
It's Glare of Subdual, right? That's a camera joke.
Uh-huh.
Some idiot made a foil cube here. I don't know.
No.
I can't tell what it is. I thought it was Windswept Heath, but that would definitely be in play if that's what it was.
No, I think it might have been Finale of Devastation. Which I couldn't tell exactly either, but yeah. Kind of similar arts, but yeah, clearly not a land.
Between Finale and Fauna Shaman, have to imagine that if he's allowed to untap with this Courser, we would be able to find a land on top, and for that exact reason, we see Duretti killing the Courser. And it looks like we have stage depths ready to go. Oh, maybe it was a land.
I didn't notice, I wonder if he had just played his land for turn.
Prior to activating the Fauna Shaman. Unfortunate missequencing if that's the case. Here's Beseiju.
Ooh.
Yeah, disrupt the Dark Depths combo. I'm not sure if there's a timing that you can Beseiju to destroy both the Dark Depths and the Thespian Stage. I think not.
I think so.
Oh, because the new dark once he sacrifices the old Dark Depths, yeah. But regardless, disrupts the combo even with the Thespian Stage staying in play.
At least I'm pretty sure. I played a lot of Legacy with Wastelands, but can't exactly remember why that's the way it works, but I'm pretty sure that's the way it works. I'm pretty sure you can respond after Legend Roll gets rid of the first Dark Depths.
So Ancestral Recall cast. Our great value questing beast continuing to get home. Looks like there is something to follow it up with here. the Bitter Union again.
Post-combat Bitter Reunion at least means nothing's coming out of nowhere like it did last game.
But does indicate that we were on track for the hasty 2020 again. This game without
True.
the
well,
procedure.
it might have been an in-step activation though, so it might not have needed haste.
True.
Started Sarah's Emissary there, which my 2 reanimate effects are the reanimate we've seen cast and persist, so still live to put that one onto the battlefield at some point here.
Yeah, Jacob with a lot of questions that need answering here. Not a bad spot to start.
Indeed, but that might have been his last card.
Yeah.
I was going to say, the fact that this
yeah.
Fauna Shaman hasn't won Jacob the game despite sitting in play for several turns leads me to believe there's some piece that's missing to make Jacob's deck run smoothly, because normally I would expect, I guess maybe he just hasn't drawn a creature, but Fauna Shaman usually can piece something together.
Yeah.
I mean, with this much mana that Jacob has, I imagine if he draws a creature, just immediately Fauna Shamaning for Eternal Witness to start something. Eternal Witness seems like would be free here.
Just gonna clean up the board and
yeah, any removal spell just puts the game out of reach for Jacob there.
So heading into a sideboarded game here, interested to see if maybe there's some answers coming from Jacob's side.
Yeah, based on the first 2 games, it feels like he needs to get one of his planeswalkers going early, either Oko or ramping in to Nissa, because his top end, while powerful, he just doesn't have quite the juice to get there as fast as you would normally want to.
A long time here on this first land. I wonder what the decision point is. Bad lands into Faithless Looting.
I would assume the decision point is whether or not to wait a turn and you find Xander's Lounge.
Yeah, I could see that. Especially given the inconsistent nature of my deck. It's rare that I'm going to just drop a big guy into play on turn 2, so...
Looks like a Dark Depths discarded there. Maybe having some land shortages.
Certainly possible, although Swamp Cycling here is going to fix all that up.
Troll helps with that for sure, yeah. And also with getting a creature into play.
Now, there are some big ring creatures that invalidate the troll pretty quickly. Hornet Queen's the first one that comes to mind. Just any of the ones that could make multiple blockers could be huge for Jacob, but he's got to ramp into that mana. We again saw an Elder not sacrificed because of this Gaia's Cradle that lets him cast
Sentinel of the Nameless City.
A creature that explores. Or a creature that makes map tokens, so
it makes a map
explores.
token when it enters the battlefield or attacks, I believe.
I've not been the most convinced of that one yet in queue, but it draws enough attention to be worth one of Scott's Mountains. Also keeps Jacob off of being able to triple block if he had been planning to do so.
I have Island, and is that a scrub land in play?
I believe
I think
it's
Badlands.
Or no, the Badlands
Scrublands
got sacrificed.
Ah.
That's really interesting because I don't have a scrub land in my main deck, so I must have sideboarded in some white spell, but I don't recall what that was at this point, so I wonder if we're going to get to see it.
Yeah, I believe that in the last match you played a Concealed Courtyard at some point too, so maybe a couple of white sources came in for something.
Very interesting.
Oko getting explored away there. Can't currently be cast, although with the Elder in play, it seems pretty easy to get to that, so not sure
Easy,
what.
but maybe too time consuming given the role on the other side of the battlefield.
A small point about the lands you mentioned. There are a lot of cards in Cube these days that allow you to play with your opponent's cards. We've joked about Scott having several of those, this Thief of Sanity being one of them. I think essentially free lands that you can play, like Scrubland, are just always correct to play. I think it's also correct to always play with Snowlands if given the option, because you don't know what's in your opponent's deck that might reward you for having extra colors, even if you don't need them for your deck. For example, Golos is a card in Cube that's very powerful, that just allowing yourself those extra colors can make a difference
Side
on.
note, there is that white card, the Prismatic Ending, which we did see previously as well, that I'd forgotten about, so.
Fair. We had seen it cast for free off Vitali, so we had forgotten about it.
Card does in fact cost mana.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I know that Thief of Sanity and Robber of the Rich, which we've seen, let you pay any color of mana, but yeah, there's definitely effects that do not do that, so.
Right, and you could steal a card. I mentioned Golos, but there's a ton of activated abilities on other creatures that...
Probably just going to fight.
Interesting choice. I think in Jacob's position, I wouldn't want to let this thief keep hitting me, so I think I maybe would have killed the thief with the plan to just block with a bunch of stuff on the troll, because if Scott wants to trade with Kogla, nothing else is dying to that combat anyway. And at 4 life, that's just 2 more hits with Thief of Sanity. Obviously, that play is slightly higher risk. If there's a removal spell for the Kogla, you most likely lose, but not sure if Jacob's in a position where he's going to beat a removal spell next turn anyway.
A lot of thinking on this Thief of Sanity for what looked like a Llanowar Elf.
It's also worth noting that a large block against that troll eats a ton of his mana, given that Cradle is doing so much work for him.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think with Cradle involved, you just kill the little goons, right? Because you don't really care about Kogla, especially if you have this persist.
That's fair, but I think that Kogla killing Thief and then you trading off some little dudes for the troll, I think that's a more
Alternatively,
playable...
what if you have Craterhoof Behemoth in your hand and...
That's fair. Okay. Jacob showed me. If the Craterhoof was already in his hand, for sure.
Yeah. Have to imagine it was. It looked like he was slamming that land off the top as the last mana he needed. Although I guess he could have tapped the Elvish Mystic to pay for it, but...
A double mulligan here?
Yeah, it looks like we're headed into game 4. Jacob on a double mulligan. On the draw, so slightly less painful, but...
I see him starting on, I think that's Breeding Pool?
Yeah.
I believe
Hard
so,
to
yeah.
tell. But means that
Double
if
mulligan into Thoughtseize.
Thoughtseize finding Oko 2 games in a row is brutal, especially, I was about to mention, if he had his splash blue spell, at least he'd be able to play it, but...
Well, he explored his Oko away last game, but didn't end up mattering, but...
in one of the games it got Thoughtseized, because that was the game Jacob accidentally just picked it back up into
tried
his
not
hand.
to discard it, yeah.
Yes. So Oko just getting shortchanged this whole match, it seems.
Thief of Sanity back again.
My mana looks perfect this game, too. So a lot of things going right for me.
Oko picked back up. There's that concealed courtyard Prose mentioned. Again, we've already figured out that at least Prismatic Ending is what the white splash is for. Though it's a little curious to see it come in this match. It made sense against the Hangerback Walker style deck. Using it just on a mana dork seems less appealing.
Yeah, but sometimes, I mean, it's a turn one play, right? Sometimes that's enough to just set these green decks enough back that
Yeah, I don't think I do this just for prismatic ending. Like again, I can't remember what else my sideboard consisted of, but I want to believe there's like another maybe more high impact spell that I'm bringing in against creatures.
well, if you get a third white mana, you can play your Sarah's Emissary. So
True,
yeah,
true.
you just have to use your Thespian stage to copy your Concealed Courtyard, and then you're in business.
Yeah, I mean that's probably my plan A. Honestly, it's probably what I drew up.
Oko finally getting into play after 4 games.
He didn't want to make my construct into an elk. It's pretty rude, honestly, but you know, we ball in anyway.
Just gonna pull it out of the sleeve there rather than add on counters and potentially cause a confusing situation. So 3/3 and a defender creature versus an Eternal Witness standing in front of an Oko on 5, yeah.
Yeah, if Oko gets attacked, I assume we let Oko take it so that we can then elk the witness. But not going to get the opportunity.
Prismatic ending.
Prismatic ending. Now that's
No
a good
impact
prismatic
now,
ending.
is it?
That's fair. I'd been thinking about it for the cheaper spells.
I wonder if that wasn't the play. I have to imagine we just used a ready to kill the Eternal Witness before we attack as well.
That's fair.
But maybe not. Jacob, another 3 mana spell. And that's Sentinel back. Just gonna explore immediately.
Her witness.
Hiding it. Like a scumbag. Oh, Kogla.
Didn't want to draw Kogla, so we're assuming there's not another land in his hand.
Yeah. That is a triple green spell. And oh no, we do have triple green right now because that's a breeding pool. So would have been able to cast it with one more land, but yeah, has to mean there's not another one in there. I believe maybe not.
A derogatory speaker. My Thief of Sanity took on a prior turn, and then just sacking 2 to ready to kill the Map Man.
Was that enough of a minus on Duretti? Isn't Duretti a -2?
Nope, just -1. That card is good.
Oh, wow.
And I have Concealing Curtains again, but not another land, so
No
not
activation
flipping
available.
it this turn as well. Still feeling pretty good against my opponent on no non-land permanents here.
Jacob taking a look at what's in his graveyard, maybe trying to figure out what his outs are looking like.
Right, with Eternal Witness already gone, seems unlikely that he has much to do with the graveyard. There is a Finale in his deck. We talked about it in a previous game. Finale can get creatures from the graveyard, but doesn't change what he does already know about from just building his deck.
Okay,
Oh,
so
Life Death.
Guessing Life Death, yeah.
That must have been in from the sideboard. I'm not seeing it here in his main deck. He did already have a Black Splash for Mind Twist, something we haven't seen yet this match, but between Mind Twist being his Black Splash and Oko being his Blue Splash, like I like Jacob's little splashes, but so far things...
Is that also a Plains?
Complaints to me, yeah.
Interesting. That is also a sideboard. So both players introducing white mana post board.
So interesting decision here to fight the elk and not the curtains. Maybe Jacob just doesn't care about the cards that are in his hand, although that turning into a menace creature is...
Yeah, I wonder if that's a mistake. I wonder if he forgot that it was an elk, or... Because it doesn't make much sense to me. Unless he has a removal... Oh, if he has the pylon to respond to the activation.
Would be good.
To me, this is telegraphing pylon pretty hard.
I guess we've also seen... Oh, no, that was another match.
Depending on what's in my hand, if I'm thinking he has pylon here, I think the play is add a black with Mox Jet and sack it to ready to kind of force the issue. Again, if I don't have anything else to do with my mana, it doesn't hugely matter, but I am not going to make that play. Instead, just play a Blood Tithe Harvester here.
Oh, sacrificing the blood token. Okay.
Yeah. Didn't even get the blood token since it was immediately.
Oh, because I
away.
also have a persist.
There you go. So no pylon, it seems. Although there could definitely be cards in the sideboard that we haven't seen yet, but...
Presenting a lethal attack here, so Jacob's going to need something, and something that has to live through an essentially free to ready minus, so one creature is not going to be enough here.
Reclamation Sage makes it a little bit better, but...
Yeah, less free to ready minus, because you can't flip the curtains and get in, but I think this is still lethal? No, not quite.
Yeah, I mean, with having to sacrifice a creature and having a second blocker... Oh, but Fire Covenant takes care of that. And Jacob's just done.
Yep.
Yeah, despite not being an actual lethal attack here, he's just pretty buried by the board.
Right. Jacob's deck didn't really cooperate with him there. We see powerful cards, Oko, Nissa, Mind Twist. He has the Crater Hoof if he is able to ramp, but he doesn't seem to have quite the right ramp creatures to get him there. We see maybe a few too many of the mid-range cards. We like Oko and Nissa in that slot, but to also have the map creature, the Fate Questing Beast creature, all the cards that I don't even know the name of in the deck alongside them, I think puts a little bit too much in the middle. So that's Jacob out of the losers bracket. Scott continuing to fight on, and we'll see him again in the next match.
Scott managed to get on the board there, picking up the win over Jacob in the lower bracket, eliminating Jacob from our final draft. Meanwhile, Ditter took down Brian and Bats took down Prose, both entering the tournament off their buys, which leaves Scott to face Brian in the lower bracket as the lower seeded of the two players. We'll head into that match right now.
So we're back with our third match overall, our second lower bracket match, and right now we're seeing Scott versus Brian. Brian looks to be on a Reanimator deck of some sort, looking at his list here. Has a couple other ways of putting big creatures into play, but we've already seen some of the cards I'm sure Brian's deck would want in the decks we've already seen, so we know he didn't get all the pieces he wanted. It looks like that's Lava Claw Reaches to start.
Yeah. This is a favorite of Brian. He goes to the strategy quite a bit, and I don't think he would be too thrilled with this particular build of this kind of strategy, but he does have some good pieces. He has both Entomb and a few 2-drop Reanimate, but it is not like optimal cards by any stretch here.
For sure. I would definitely call Brian one of our more likely combo players in our cube group, often liking Storm, Reanimator, Twin, other combos that can be put together in the various different cubes that we draft.
Yeah, but not doing much comboing thus far. I'm on the board with some artifact mana and a Blood Tithe Harvester, but he's not doing much except removing said Harvester.
Yep, just a dismember so far, so.
I was trying to tell what that was. With an island tap, there weren't that many options, but...
Yeah, dismember not holding up a lot in card quality versus Mox, Ancestral Recall, and Blood Tithe Harvester, but Entomb maybe can
though,
get something done, yeah. Attracts in the graveyard.
Mm-hmm. Of note, though, talking about Brian's deck maybe being slightly lower power level, with Duretti already in play to possibly kill the Atraxa, depending on what the reanimation spell is, definitely means that he has to get a lot of value that he might not be able to out of those flips.
Yeah, the scariest part of Brian's deck, which I'm not aware of at the table at the moment, but he has Emrakul the Aeon Storm and the 2-drop reanimate your top creature, give it haste kind of effect. That's probably his most powerful line here. So Entombing for Atraxa does look great generally, but in his specific deck list, looking at it now, it's not the play I'm most scared of him making with that Entomb.
And Shallow Grave would still be good against the Duretti, better than Animate Dead or Reanimate, which wouldn't be able to kill the Duretti right away. Memory Lapse here.
Bloodthirsty Adversary, which I imagine was just representing another A-call.
Right, and it'll do the same next turn, but at least slows down by a turn, gives Brian more chance to develop. When he's just maybe trying to get to mana, we've seen Scott ramp a little bit through some mana rocks. Brian has some powerful 5-mana spells lurking in his deck, so might just be building towards one of those.
This is another good example of kind of the clunkiness of my build too, because I came out of the gates quick with Artifact Mana and Ancestral Recall. That turn going for a second Ancestral Recall, but really my turns I've just been making a construct from Duretti and playing a land and passing turn. I'm not really doing a ton here.
Looks like that's Sarah Emissary? Is that the one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely a bit of a similarity between these two decks and just kind of cards that they want. And
don't want to see it zoom cast on either side, really. Ooh, it looked like that might have been a reanimate off the top for Scott, though. Oh, well, Vampiric Tutor. I missed the Vampiric Tutor. It's less exciting that way, but was mentioning Brian's slower start and losing his reanimation target definitely puts him even further away.
Although that is a lot of lands in an Atraxa pile.
Still, I think one of the big benefits here is just getting the Atraxa out of Brian's graveyard. I don't know how much that would have figured into the math. It is a better reanimation target than the Emissary anyway, in most cases, but...
And also, I have that disease that most Magic players have, that I would just rather draw cards than win the game anyway, so...
Also, the Emissary isn't legendary, right? Or is it?
I believe it is not legendary.
So this Persist can get it back this turn.
Yeah, it is not legendary. Persist Land and the Dinosaur, I believe, were the cards there.
Yes, we could see Persist Dinosaur, but I imagine we'll just see Persist Emissary instead.
Yeah, not sure what the chosen card type is here, but
I would have to imagine in here.
Instant? Okay.
Just cutting off the removal options,
Yeah,
I would
fair.
assume.
Yeah, it's tougher in game one. You know, if I knew my opponent had like a damnation or something, maybe I would lean different. But instant does seem like a good call just in the dark here.
Una's Prowler and just Una's Prowler and Jace, so impressive cards on their own, but not really in the face of Atraxa and Asera Emissary.
Right. Una's Prowler maybe could discard something to get brought back. We talked about Shallow Grave, not the mana to cast it here, but could threaten something on the backswing if Scott's not careful. Mana definitely not the bottleneck here. And here's the dinosaur.
You have to be more specific.
Fair.
That's true. The Carnosaur specifically.
And in this game, I don't really think I have to be. Any dinosaur here is already going to be just adding to the mountain of problems for Brian.
Point.
I'm gonna say Duretti just gonna take out the Una's Prowler, looks like.
Yeah, and that over Jace here is a function of not being particularly scared of the spells that Brian has, and also killing the Jace too. Never mind.
Or the blood shards to kill Jace, yeah.
Right, definitely seeing a split deck here. Brian having the Entomb, Scott having the Bone Shards, the Reanimate, and Exhume being split up. Shallow Grave on the other side of the table. Lots of various pieces split between the two decks. Brian successfully getting back his Atraxa for game 2, though.
Certainly would be a rough one to lose in this matchup. Lava Claw reaches again.
Yeah, Brian's mana looks pretty good looking at his deck list, so I imagine if he has troubles, that's unlikely to be exactly where it starts.
Him here. Is that a Tali and Watery Grave, it looked like, so.
Him rough against Reanimator, gonna feel silly here if Atali just gets reanimated right away.
Just curtains, though.
Much faster had I had the reanimate, but
Right, seeing the one black get tapped though must have give Brian some like pause, some heart skipping a beat there, just thinking he had set you up.
it's like he deserved it. I mean, he made me discard 2 cards. So rude.
It's only fair that you play the dinosaur and get 2 cards back, right? That's how it works.
Well, we've seen that Scott's plan is hard casting those dinosaurs.
That's true, yeah.
I wouldn't call it my plan. That just kind of happened because my deck is not very good. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it is probably some solace that Atali is the card that gets discarded, and Brian's seen persist at this point, which can't get that back, so. But just letting him keep the cards with Concealing Eye. Concealing Eye, is that what that card is called on the back? I can't remember, but.
I think the math's probably different. A couple of those cards I'd be more interested in taking if we didn't also have the Harvester. But with 6 damage coming in a turn, I think I agree. Just let him keep the things that you know about and just try to kill him.
Revealing Eye. Sorry, not Concealing. Couldn't have been further from the truth.
Sign of defeat here. Brian's thrown his hand down on the table.
yeah. One of our more emotional players, Brian, really makes it known when he's not having a good time in a game.
So just a Faithless Looting into an attack, but Lava Claw Reaches will take down the Harvester at least.
Imagine we'll see the blood token used at end of turn here, Scott. Even through the Ancestral and Faithless Looting, didn't manage to find a reanimation spell yet, and my mistake, blood token stuck around.
Probably because all my cards are great, maybe. Hopefully.
You've got a grip full of them after that Ancestral. I have to imagine one of them could be worth an upgrade, but just developing mana on the
Just
next
a couple
turn,
of
couple of
talismans,
mana
yeah.
rocks.
Lorien revealed. Not quite Ancestral Recall, but it's doing its best. That's really all you can ask.
Right, and here we're just looking to see if Scott has a burn spell to finish the game. Looks like he did, and we're on to game 3. As we've seen Blood Tithe Harvester a lot from this deck just initiate a beatdown plan that on any of the strategies that aren't as altogether as you would traditionally want, just deliver quite the beating. The Curtains here also threatens to do much the same, though so does Uno's Prowler on the opposite side.
Or on both sides, really.
Yeah, this being a sideboarded game, I'm a little surprised to still see that Uno's Prowler in, but maybe Brian has a bigger plan than that. Somehow that makes giving me a free discard outlet palatable.
Yeah, Brian's just done after that, I think, so.
That's fair. And I think on the Prowler note, like, we talked about Brian's deck not quite coming together. We see it in kind of how defeated he is at the end of that match. Besides the Entomb, the Prowler's really his only other good discard outlet. So it might just be that he can't afford to go so low on ways to get his creatures into the graveyard, especially mentioning that he has the Shallow Grave Emrakul to maybe go over the top of opposing reanimation spells.
Right.
So, a bit unfortunate to see Brian out there, but we will get on to less of a mirror match with our next one.
So the champ eliminates Brian there, continuing his lower bracket run, headed for a rematch against Prose, the player who sent him down in the first place. Meanwhile, we had Joey finally entering play, sending Bats down into the lower bracket, as well as Matt entering play and falling to Dittert to join Prose, Scott, and Bats in the lower bracket. Let's see if Scott can have a little better luck in the rematch.
Not a mirror match, but a rematch we have here. That's right, not an error, not a glitch. We have Prose that just got knocked down to the losers bracket. Prose, do you want to speak at all about the match we didn't see from you in between?
Yeah, I lost to Bats in the upper bracket. It was kind of an absolute beating coming into this match, actually. So after my first match, I was actually a bit down coming into this one.
And even though we saw Prose win this last time, we've talked a lot about Scott's multiple Motzin giving him explosive power, the ability to play aggro if he needs to, though that is unlikely to be the case in this match. Looks like mana's pretty good, though. As, again, Blood Tithe Harvester.
Okay, turn to myself. I assume that got Cauldron complete there.
Right, definitely powerful 2-drops on both sides.
Yeah, but as we saw in the first match, Prose's deck is just full of hard to answer, very efficient threats. So I'm already being put to the test here with this Stoneforge Mystic and taxed even further by the Esper Sentinel that he played on turn 1.
Right, and good to see the Stoneforge go away here because I'm actually not confident with the suite of threats that Scott has to once again bring up the way that the Reanimator deck kind of got split up. I'm not confident too many of them can race Cauldron complete.
No, that card is one of many nightmares that's lurking in Prose's deck for me, for sure.
Very inactive Mott's Opal looks to have been the only spell during Prose's last turn.
Well, it would have been active if somebody hadn't rudely killed all of my creatures, but yeah, just the turned off Mox Opal and the Celestial Colonnade fall up. So
Yeah, that is the one saving grace I have, that at least the Stoneforge Mystic is a relatively easy to answer card. Um, it is a pretty severe timing window that I need to answer it in, but if I'm able to do that, the pressure is off at least for a bit here.
And it was a good answer, getting a 2 for 2. If we're counting Esper Sentinel's draw, though, I suppose maybe down a card off of the Culture Complete that's rotting in Prose's hand.
stuck in hand, yeah. Although not, I mean, my deck has Ancient Tomb, Grim Monolith. Not too terribly far off from casting it even here, but
Especially if we can get Metalcraft. Oh, maybe a pause before combat, so this Robber of the Rich can't trigger.
yeah, don't really want that Robber of the Rich attacking. I think just trying to decide what we're gonna throw away for Solitude here.
Unfortunate, the turn before Solitude could get hardcast. I wonder, do you recall at the time if you had a land in hand, or was... Because I think if this was a guaranteed Solitude cast next turn, it would be pretty tempting to wait.
Just take it, yeah. Yeah, not sure. I don't remember details. But yeah, I don't know. It might have just been a result of how much how much work Robber of the Rich has done in the past to just not even want to deal with that.
Because overall, a little bit surprised on what we do have on your side of the board, as it was 4 mana last turn, unspent, access to all your colors. So, got to be curious what is in hand over there.
Looked like I caught a glimpse of Fractured Identity, but not really anything to cast that on.
Right, would feel kind of silly casting it on anything on Scott's board and then Visitali getting cast.
Just a Mox and a rock, but well, if it was that, I have to imagine it's gonna get
And
played
hopefully
here.
hit something
Yeah.
better. Yep, that's Fractured Identity. Thinking on Scott's side, 2 mana rocks weren't the best of hits, but if it means some interaction at this point, no. Okay.
Not much better. My own Mox and Bloodthirsty Adversary that I cannot activate.
Right, Matsu Opal's still not on.
Mm-hmm.
Relevant, and we haven't seen it yet this match, but one of Prose's best weapons against me is a Caracas. So being able to hardcast a Tali is a good thing, because getting to trigger that every turn is not like the best thing in the world, but it's one of the few good things I can do against Caracas. This Fracture Identity, however, completely shuts that option away for me. So
I believe I saw a reanimate there in Scott's hand, but nothing super interesting. I guess on the Solitude,
Yeah, Solitude could be a good target there.
definitely takes away all the work we've done so far on Prose's life total, but it seems like it's what we have to do. Atali exiled twice in this match.
Rough day for the dinosaurs. They got to have their fun in our first match we played though, so
not enough fun.
finally getting that harvester off the table. Only took Scott's own creature to do it.
We're really not playing with our own cards this match. We're just trading stuff left and right here.
Oh well.
Quick read of Adversary, and using its ability to cast a spell from the graveyard.
That's a pretty good one. I believe that should not have any counters on it at this point.
Yes, that's what I was just checking to make sure. Because the persist counter should cancel out with the adversary's own ability. I assume this is accidentally the -1/-1 counter, so only going to come back to hurt Scott. Oh, was Colonnade up there? I was surprised to see no attacks, but
I don't
maybe.
believe so, because I would have cast the Fractured Identity on the last turn.
Yeah, so surprised not to see adversary attack last turn, though maybe something we missed.
Pia and Kieran Nalar is going to go up the board a bit.
Especially with an activation up. Pretty much, again, threatens to just trade off the board. Taking a while to consider how we're tapping. Is this just an activation of Tar Pit?
Mind Collapse, okay. Floating
Oof.
some mana here, presumably, but Ephemerate for the Pia and Kieran.
Just so backbreaking.
Oh, there's the Carnosaur to clean them up regardless, but gonna take out the Solitude on the way.
Yeah, make it kind of a 3-for-2 overall. Hard to really track, but I think cutting off the flashback of Ephemerate, I guess there's nothing else left in play that it could be valuable on, but is nice to have that one now gone for either activation.
Also, like, required me to lose that Carnosaur that I could easily hardcast. That's also a big cost.
That's fair. Just was talking about hardcasting dinosaurs earlier. Ooh. But
And the master plan is revealed.
with exactly enough mana.
Although do have a blocker for it.
And
Yeah.
Croc is somewhere in the deck.
Croc is somewhere in the deck, yes.
And here comes that Cauldron Complete from earlier.
Not getting to have gained any life off of that Solitude. No attacks managing to get in with that means that we're dead to just 2 hits of this Cauldron here. Though the Dark Depths token could block the Cauldron, so
Not very
sure.
profitably, but it can speed bump it, yeah. Cauldron exiles when it deals damage to something.
In hindsight, I don't love coming in with Tar Pit here. Like, having a second blocker potentially for a Cauldron Complete seems valuable.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I am pressuring your life total. I don't know. I just, watching the game now, kind of feel like I need to connect with this Merit Lage or I'm not going to win the game. So I don't love the second attacker here, but maybe I had another master plan in hand.
Right. It seems like maybe we're having some discourse about life totals at the table, so maybe it came in due to a misunderstanding. Who's to say?
Certainly possible, yeah. This has been a long and pretty complicated game. Lots of back and forths, so pretty easy to get a little mixed up on one side or the other.
Looks like all that still happened, though. Looked for a moment like we were rewinding a bit, but
and on board, I still have at least one toughness to toss in front of this Cauldron Complete, so Not completely sunk here, although it's pretty precarious. Oh, and
Yeah,
there's a colonnade.
the
I
colony
wonder if I
takes it out,
literally
yeah.
didn't see that in the game too, because I missed it sitting here watching. So
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like maybe there was just a life total issue that led to that attack. That I don't know. I'd like to think that I was willing to let you walk it back, but maybe you were too nice too. But I don't know.
I wouldn't have even asked. I don't like doing that, even though we're like all friends and playing somewhat casually. I made my play. I want to stick to it.
It did seem like we were close to that, though, with the Thopter coming back into play. But with the Colonnade, that I also missed watching it, even though we had talked about it a couple of times. I don't think there was a line around it.
Not that included attacking with Meryl Age at least.
Sure.
A little bit of a
Box
nombo
opener
here.
Pretty nice.
Make me discard a card. I just get to put it under currency converter.
Yeah, I think I'm more interested in attacking you for 3 this turn. Is the main draw here?
Yeah.
Right.
Although definitely a few. Well, I guess one really good hit and a few decent ones.
Yeah, I'd be very interested in just letting you keep all those, though.
Yep. Seems to be the
having
case.
full knowledge, not giving you a free rogue.
Yeah, it's a free rogue and an extra card, basically. So
Yes and no. I mean, like turning an Othari into a rogue for the entire game is not,
Right.
you know, it is some
Sure.
tempo loss, but I don't have to play against Othari, so that that's worth considering. But I do agree that just selecting nothing here is probably the best.
I think,
choice.
though, a random card plus a free rogue changes the math a lot. Because it's the same thing as with Vendilion Click, where the card gets replaced. So
Yeah. Othari is just a very, very good creature. I don't know if you've happened to read the text on that card before. It is pretty annoying if you can't kill it on site.
fair, but especially seeing it turn 1, I think it was an easy choice to do what you did.
Yeah, I am a genius. I agree.
true. You're just smarter than the rest of us. That's why you drafted 2 Moxes.
Hey, current champ, you know? 2 Moxes and an Ancestral Recall. Don't forget that.
Of course, yeah.
That's such a wild draft. Like, as the reigning champion and just every pack opening power, and it's just like, do you know how high I was? Like, how on Cloud 9 I was? Like, just, I was living it up. And then I finished the draft, and I was less excited, but...
Right, we're seeing you down a game here, and into the draft must have been looking at your power, but definitely competing with someone else during the draft for cards.
Yeah, I think we're considering here if we want to down tick, the Duretti, since it can't sacrifice the Moxen. Oh, just taking out the currency converter. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think with knowledge of the hand, I'm pretty on board with that. I mean,
I agree with taking away the easy play of activate Hangerback Walker, activate Converter.
well, I think more so than that, I think the prospect of Seasoned Pyromancer getting played this turn with currency converter in played is a pretty big tempo swing, but because that gives me presumably the Pyromancer 2 elementals and then the ability to make at least 1 rogue.
Yeah, and it's,
Sorry.
I guess my thought process
Or,
was to try to avoid our menace creature getting blocked, but I guess thanks to these elementals, that was just never a dream that was going to work out anyway.
Right.
Yeah, but it's certainly a tight spot already, which is kind of the running theme of the games against Prose's deck here. His cards are just so annoying. Like, every single one is like, that one?
That attack there with the Hangerback to put Duretti at 1 maybe seems obvious, given that we don't have the mana to activate, but I think it was worth the consideration. the extra moment you took there to make sure you didn't want to have it be a part of this big block.
Yeah. Mind Collapse making that kind of a blowout, but I don't think it's the most heartbreaking thing to have happen.
No, it's certainly a good play, and being able to make a construct to get in the way of this hanger back, like, I'm winning the board, but only by a little bit, and your hand is much scarier than mine.
Yeah, so we do know Othari is coming.
No. Slow it down.
That's what I was saying. So, gotta try to keep off the mana, because I don't believe I played a land the last turn, so. Just using the talisman to crank the Hangerback Walker.
Yeah, so drawing that 5th land, I have to imagine that you're pretty excited to slam this Othari into play. It feels like I don't have an answer to it, given my play the previous turn was just like Stone Rain you off of land number 5. And as your creatures all come in, it's apparently clear I don't have a way to kill Othari, at least on your turn.
Yeah, even though this Revealing Eye has been in play for a while, still only gotten a few hits in, and gaining life here also means that just the race is not a possibility, and without an immediate answer, we're just going on to the next game.
As is the usual case of an unanswered Othari, it's a pretty quick game.
Yeah, once Othari gets to attack, unless you can clear it and the creature it made, it feels kind of unwinnable from there. So game 3 looked like a mulligan on your side of the table.
Never lucky, honestly.
Badlands Tar Pit means that at least mana troubles won't be coming Scott's way this game. Adversary, another quick attacker, the Tar Pit threatening some damage later. I'm really a fan of that element of Scott's deck. As much as we've seen people maybe have taken the other parts, I enjoy, though it's at its weakest in this matchup specifically, the ability to kind of play aggro with this build of Reanimator.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate that I also am very fond of like the small creatures like supplementing the reanimation strategy. But Prose's deck is just well suited to answer both halves of that strategy pretty easily. It feels like too, as we see the Caracas. It just like
though Thief of Sanity
matchups,
Thief of Sanity probably very good in this matchup.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not a lot of ways for me to deal with it, and a lot of really good cards for it to take.
And that's Zerta on Prose's board. Remind me, can Zerta make currency converter free, or does Zerta have a minimum one clause?
It reduces to 1 minimum.
Okay.
Which is still good. You have an activation ready to go this turn.
Not if you kill it. No, but Ephemerate.
Yeah, I tried to.
I've got big plans. Clearly, I don't know.
That Ephemerate sitting on top of the deck. Quick, get in there with Thief of Sanity. Prose resisting the muscle memory there that Ragavan has put in all of us over the last couple years of just flipping the cards
over,
off the top. Yeah.
Dark Depths, but again, that Caracas already in play. So upkeep and Light and Tutor, I have
Getting
to
a
imagine.
Grim Monolith here.
So
yeah, so just okay. Just a
Grim Monolith plus Zerta makes infinite mana. That's an infinitely big Hangerback Walker. Hangerback Walker gets equipped with Cauldron Complete and attacks for infinite. Is what we saw there pretty quickly, short-handed.
Yeah, it feels like a somewhat underwhelming end to the series of games we've played that's been very back and forth, very swingy, lots of exchanging of resources. But to see my deck just get absolutely demolished in this last game here, I was happy to go eat some pizza and watch the rest of the matches we got coming up.
We saw something similar in our last invitational, though. The decks that have that little bit of the plan be just kill you out of nowhere, right? Your reanimation deck, both last Cubevitational and this Cubevitational with the Dark Depths Thespian stage combo, just kind of to sit in the background, very, very effective. The Zerta and Grim Monolith and Prose's deck able to do the same, so we'll see if we can see that perform more going forward.
So the repeat champ was not to be, as Scott fell to Prose for a second time in the lower bracket, eliminating him from the tournament. Meanwhile, we see Joey secure his spot in the grand finals by defeating Dittert, waiting at the end of the lower gauntlet run. Due to some technical difficulties, we actually don't have the match between Bats and Prose, which Prose did manage to win the rematch 3-0. This victory lines him up for a showdown with Matt for the opportunity to reach the semifinals.
So getting started with our next match, Prose is still our new King of the Hill, and we're playing against Matt. Matt is on another reanimation strategy, though this one much more mid-range, with a bunch of very castable green and black creatures that he's looking to reanimate. And I say green and black, but we see what looks like a Spar's headquarters to start us off. So I actually don't recall if there's a reason for Spar's headquarters. Maybe
There is, yeah. He has a Time Twister that he's pairing with Fast Bond to just try and get an explosive early start.
And Leovold.
Oh yeah, I just saw Leovold looking back at his list. I wasn't sure if maybe it was to go off of a fetch land, something like Marsh Flats, to be able to fetch green off the white half of it or something. But yeah, it looks like there's a couple of single pip blue spells hiding in the deck.
Speak of the devil, there's the Leovold. Hey, where am I doing a little work already? Taking the Esper Sentinel out. Mox Opal active despite that, but...
And it's Valerian Academy. Pro's showing up with a pretty quick mana draw here.
Yeah, do have to evoke this Fury, though. It looks like no second red source to go with the... Oh, but Restoration Angel, okay.
Very powerful opening.
Yes, presumably not giving Matt the free extra draw.
No extra targeting there. Yeah, no reason to.
Does look like we're out of cards though on Prose's side. So after presumably killing this Liliana,
yeah, we do have Colonnade though. So I mean, it's not a small clock here. I mean, 10 damage.
Yeah, Matt also snuck that Survival of the Fittest into play, so maybe hoping to set something up with that on this turn here. But he is under the gun pretty quickly here.
Pitching away his Grave Titan.
Yeah, 1 mana short of that one, which would stabilize the board against Fury. Still threatens to just trade for 4 with Colonnade, though.
Titan also pitches that one for a Shieldred.
Interesting, I guess.
Presumably, we've got a land to play the Shieldred this turn? Or is that his only card?
I mean, there must be a land we can't...
There we go.
Oh,
an Animate Dead.
And just lining up Shieldred for next turn. That seems like a difficult survival to resolve. Just Shieldred, looking at his deck list, is an appealing one to be the card left over at the end of things, but I'm sure there were other options as well to consider what he wanted to have set up for next turn.
Yeah, the Titan of Industry making a Rhino and taking out the Mox Opal.
Matt correctly noticing that you might be choked on the colors of mana that you want.
Yep, so just the token attacking in there.
And between some attacks and Shieldred triggers, you don't have many turns, but Zerta, it's rough because threatening to make infinite mana doesn't do anything on its own yet. You need to find both an artifact to make infinite mana with the Zerta and a payoff.
Something
And
to
it looks
do,
like you
yeah.
might only have one more draw step at it. This Clue,
Clue a tough one with Shieldred in play.
right? It is one cheaper to activate, and one cheaper with Tolarian Academy in play is basically free. Though it looks like we might have actually missed paying one less. Zerta does discount the Clue as well, right?
It does, yeah. But yeah, I think we're just gonna pack it in on this game. Yeah.
Yep.
Bit quicker start in the next one. Turn 1 Stoneforge Mystic, although Grief the pretty close to ideal follow up there. Just gonna get rid of the Cauldron Complete.
And again, Colors of Mana not being kind, as Seasoned Pyromancer would be a great follow-up, except we're sitting on double white mana right now. And another white source, so this Seasoned Pyromancer is very far away. Oh, but Karn, I didn't see Karn at the edge of the hand.
With all those cards in play, I think it's a pretty easy keep from me, but if we get to follow this up with Nettlecyst next turn.
For sure. I think turn 1 Stoneforge, rest of the hand, blanks though, would have been fine.
Yeah, for sure. My mana was definitely very rarely an issue during this, but there were a few cards, Seasoned Pyromancer being double red, that definitely kind of pinched themselves. I didn't have really any red-white duels, I don't think. I think my only dual lands were the Colonnade, which is blue-white. That might have been
we've seen the mana a little bit tough in places, but you're right, you don't have that many pips on a lot of the spells outside of Pyromancer. Yeah, it's an interesting choice because maybe would have been better to have 2 5/5s.
Yeah, I think after seeing what happened last game, though, I just want this game to be over as soon as possible.
That's fair, but his deck threatens to put up a lot of blockers, so I think the wider board, just having the extra 5/5 in play, when we know that he could play something like Grave Titan at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Though maybe how far away he is from that makes the 5 extra damage appealing.
Flipping 2 cards that make artifacts on that Karn is definitely... with equipping it back to the Stoneforge Mystic, I think
yeah,
I was just thinking
the same thing. Yeah, the Stoneforge was effectively not a creature, so it's not like it actually decreased how wide your attack was. You're definitely right there.
Yeah, Matt could not come up with the answers quick enough, so we're just on to the next game here.
I didn't even think of that line when you had initially asked, but seeing that happen makes a little bit more sense. So, good job,
Pasty was really on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as it happened, I feel like I felt a sense of deja vu.
Double mulligan.
Maybe I was watching this match and thought it at the same time there as well.
Oh, double mulligan into duress. This is what we like to see. Although this duress looks like it's missing. Joke's on you, Matt.
We talked about the color restrictions not being that big of a deal, and seems to have changed us as we have had a plains pearl hand into a mountain hand into tapped white source.
Yeah, and Matt was also missing green here, and also had a tapped green source, but he does have a Grave Titan on his next turn, so a little bit stronger of a play than maybe this. I don't know, PN Kieran Alar maybe. Not even.
Okay, well, Solitude helps.
The Stoneforge, yeah.
If only the last card behind had been the Ephemerate that we've seen be back-breaking in some of the other games.
Yeah. Wasteland
the white source.
Feels bad.
And a Shieldred. But a top deck planes puts Cauldron complete onto the battlefield. So we're not like completely out of the woods here.
Running planes would even let Skyclave eat up that Shieldred.
Instead, Island.
Was it worth it to kill me with a colonnade? Was it worth it?
Yeah, that. I think I remember this, and I think there was maybe one other time where I drew that island and just wanted to set it on fire, but
Don't do that. I worked hard on that.
yeah, not really sure what gets this out of the hole at this point with the Shieldred.
Plane's got to be a start here.
Yeah.
You have to imagine it's just a pass here. The issue is that if Matt just says go twice.
Right.
So I guess
I kind of feel like it should have been PN Kieran Nalar here, because that makes the... Yeah, there's Terrace Under. I feel like casting the PN Nalar there is actually should have been way more attractive, given that it makes the Nettlesist a 3/3 as well.
that's fair.
I guess I didn't know at the time that Matt's deck was full of ways to take Cauldron Complete off the table.
The issue with PN Nalar, though, is that PN Kieran Nalar is that if you don't draw a white source to cast the Skyclave apparition, you just lose. So maybe you take the line, but then he has to attack with Shieldred into your face-up Cauldron. So I think maybe you're right.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, clearly I didn't have that opinion on the day, so...
You had seen Haywire Mite game 1, I guess?
Blooming Marsh fuels Matt's turn 2 Leovold here, whereas Prose is just building his board with some artifact mana, and a Solarian Academy is a nice addition this turn here.
It was an uncounterable Leovold too, thanks to Halfling.
My Mana Tithe is in shambles. See if we get to actually do something with Cauldron Complete this game. Been pretty effectively neutered so far this match.
Paying the 1 for Soul Ring.
And here goes that grief again.
If you pay 1 for Soul Ring, did you even really cast Soul Ring? Interesting. That's not even Necromancy. I have to imagine Necromancy the only black card in Matt's hand. Since, if not, he could have just double Necromancied there.
Double Grief, you mean? Yeah.
Or double Griefed, yeah.
Looks like we're setting up to equip it to the Esper Sentinel, and that is what happens. Only to be torn asunder.
Mildly of old cheating.
Oh, yeah. Don't get to draw the extra card off Esper Sentinel with Leovold. Man, we were talking about your deck kind of being a counter to Scott's, but it feels like Matt's got a lot of the right answers for this one.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, having Terrace Under versus my deck that Cauldron Complete has been racking up bodies with is feels pretty bad. Haywire Mite to boot as well, so...
Yeah, this definitely seemed like a matchup where you wanted to draw Othari early and often in every game. But maybe that's every matchup also.
Yeah, I don't think there's any matchup that I would complain about that for sure.
What killed the Nettlesist? I missed it.
Terrace Under.
Just Terrace Under? Okay.
But it was done during combat, so the Leovold got to block the Esper Sentinel then as well.
That's what had happened, okay.
Yeah. Big pest infestation. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Against your academy? Brutal.
Yeah, so essentially destroyed a land as well in that whole exchange, so feels pretty bad.
Really not a fan of putting 6 die or a die onto your pests to represent 6 pests. I hate that. I have all the pests, so come on, man. That's just being lazy.
I was going to say, maybe just didn't grab enough, didn't believe in himself he was going to cast it for 7 mana.
Okay, Restoration Angel.
Good Restoration Angel here.
Joke's on him, I have 1/2s for the 1/1 army. Matt tries to steal my angel.
It was a long day of Magic.
Yeah. We had been playing Magic for a very long time at this point, yeah.
So because of Matt's record going into the final draft, I think he's only played 1 match before this. So maybe he has a little bit less of an excuse.
In this draft. We did do another draft before this one, but yes.
That's fair.
Getting rid of the Leovold, we can use our Clue now.
Oh, did the Clue not get sacked end of turn? I thought we had 2 mana up thanks to the Clue off of Tolarian.
I think we only had 1. We didn't have Mox Opal then. I think we just played the Mox Opal. Endurance, okay.
One good flash deserves another.
Slightly less impactful. This one just gets to bounce, but yeah, I have to assume that Mox Opal would have been a target of the Pest Infestation if it had been around before this.
Man, Endurance 2, after seeing a couple of graveyard-based decks, Matt's just set up to go against everyone. I assume that's Endurance's main deck too, since can't imagine it came in for this matchup in particular.
Right. Everything attacking here.
To drop some pests to your 1/2s.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Stoneforge Mystic is in front of the Endurance, yeah. So it should be dead, which we're going to catch up on at some point, hopefully.
Yeah, maybe it locked the halfling? Oh.
No, it was in front of Endurance, yeah. So despite a few plays, still kind of on the brink here.
Well, with Colonnade, it really helps stabilize this board.
So nothing from Matt there. Okay. Season Pyromancer feels pretty good. Inactive Mox Opal, but
I wonder if this is just a pause on if we can attack or not.
yeah. Okay, Hangerback Walker.
I assume next turn, with the ability to leave Colonnade up, all other things being equal, we'll see Resto start to serve in, but no rush. Matt's at 14. Definitely.
Well, Resto isn't really an attacker with Endurance. I think you'd have to be attacking with the Colonnade, yeah. Which is pretty easy with Academy. Yeah.
Oh yeah, good to have it on defense as well.
Okay. Titan of Industry. I assume we're making a Rhino. Destroy the Mox Opal. Okay.
Interesting.
Wasn't currently active, but
it was fueling the Academy a bit.
Was fueling the Academy, yeah.
For Matt's position, I'm not sure how we're going to deal with this Hangerback Walker getting a lot bigger. I guess he has some exile-based removal he can draw against it. Speaking of exile-based removal,
yeah.
Matt didn't come ready with your Rhino token. How cruel.
I'm probably still deciding what to do here, although I imagine that gaining 5 life is basically required, yeah. And looks like making a Rhino as well. Although, yeah, no more Rhino tokens, so we just have a Bobby token.
probably got to pass here, but again, next turn, Colonnade gets to start serving in again.
Yeah, I mean this Titan of Industry can attack too, which is a big trample creature. Vigilance as well, right? I'm making that up.
Reach trample.
Oh, okay. I knew it had 2 keywords. I just had the wrong one, I guess.
And especially with the Titan gaining 5, there's less of like an immediate threat on the back swing as well. The fact that Matt's board is really wide with all these pest tokens is less scary now.
Like an Enlightened Tutor getting discarded to that currency converter there.
Interesting. Just the Titan.
I think. Okay, I was gonna say I have to imagine that there's a follow-up play if we're not attacking with the Colonnade.
Yeah, and Matt gaining 3 by the time you attack with the Titan also, I think, changes the math that I was doing in my head of how close to dead he was. Well, better hope that Hangerback Walker doesn't die.
Yeah,
I mean, I constantly hope they don't die, so.
So 5 blue mana floating, it looks like, is what we're denoting there. Spending
6 mana.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Oh. Someone miscounted it somewhere.
Yeah.
Interesting
So
to
getting
tap
rid
a
of the...
mountain for that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what was going on with the mana there.
Maybe it was just leaving up Colonnade.
Yeah,
yeah. You needed to save some amount of blue mana, but
right.
At any rate, Matt had enough of that game.
Yeah. Even gaining 6 life from the Primeval Titan there kind of feels like it's pretty dusted. He doesn't have anything that can deal with the Battle Sphere from there.
This is a spooky hand. It has a lot of things that just could be powerful payoffs depending on what he takes.
Like a Mox Pearl, maybe?
That wasn't even what I was thinking of, but that is real brutal to take the 1-drop and for Prose still to have a turn 1 play.
But we have another grief.
Good grief.
Currently is, yeah.
A tiny bit less good than normal, though. Just a 2/2.
If that card had 0 power, it would be the smallest bit worse than it is.
Interesting. I was thinking about this card. I was going to say it was an interesting play to see the second mountain instead of the plains that we know about come down. It makes young Pyromancer able to discard the plains, but it also means that if the Pearl had gotten blown up, we couldn't cast our double white spell if we drew it.
On a sacrifice, that's not a play you're happy to make on this board.
This yells damnation to me.
Oh, strong point, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's just the only thing he has, but...
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I can...
Yeah, you can't sacrifice the Skyclave to play around damnation. That doesn't work, so...
It could also just be like setting up a pest infestation to, there's not a lot of clean answers to Hangerback Walker, although Matt's deck in particular has a few, so it's just a rough go of it when that's your play on that board.
A brutal Ephemerate.
The Ephemerate that he knew about coming in to take out the Shieldred, but again, I don't think you can not make that play.
Wow, and Cauldron Complete.
Yeah, Ancient Tomb enabling Cauldron Complete.
Matt's not done fighting, though. We got Primeval Titan.
Yeah, we skip ahead a little bit through the shuffling. Matt's got a bunch of lands, but this attack still looks close to lethal.
I think it's just short. Yeah, too short. With the trample damage. Yeah, 6 damage from 8.
Yeah, the one game we don't have Colonnade. Oh, it looks like also Caracas showed up, so I don't know if Matt has very many legendary creatures now that Shieldred's answered, but even possible coverage there.
Just saw Leovold, I guess, but that's not great. He gets to draw a card. But yeah, it doesn't look like anything, so the lower bracket run continues.
And was saying that Matt's deck looked well positioned against you, but I guess just so many different angles and Matt stumbling a little bit gave you the ability to pick up a very quick last game, and impressed how much you were able to battle through it the game before. Wouldn't normally expect to see you win the grindier ones.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with that. And the way that the first couple of games went in this match, even winning the second one, I was not super optimistic, but glad it worked out.
Yep, let's get on to the last, or not last one, but one of our few remaining decks we haven't seen yet as we continue Prose's run.
So Prose stays alive in the lower bracket, taking down Matt in 5 games there, leaving only a matchup with Dittert standing between him and the opportunity to face Joey in the finals. Dittert probably has a rematch on his mind as well, so let's go in and see how their match turns out.
Jumping into our next match already underway, we have Dittert and Prose playing. Dittert is on another red-white deck, and if you've felt like besides Esper Sentinel and Stoneforge that Prose's deck was missing some of the aggro elements you would maybe normally expect, Dittert is one of the other players at the table who is picking up a lot of those cards. We can see Usher of the Fallen, just one of the many 2 power 1 cost creatures in the cube, and Jitte coming down on this turn. Got to be a pretty brutal card in the matchup.
Yeah, not a lot that my deck can do against a start like this, I feel. I mean, there's a lot of value in my creatures, but not really anything that can match up with an active Jitte. Especially, it looks like the Stoneforge has already been exiled.
This seems like an interesting equipping the Usher instead of the Lauren. With you playing Caracas as your land for this turn, maybe that's correct, though bouncing Lauren never is a great option anyway. But I feel like normally I'd want it on the Lauren as opposed to the Usher. Vigilance alone just doing so much for that.
Well, I was going to say Karn may be able to help stabilize this board, but the construct immediately taken out, and I imagine Karn won't be too far behind. Yeah, and Hellrider there is just gonna cause me to pick up the cards. Yeah.
Yeah, Dittert still tapping his lands as you pick yours up as we are on to the next one.
If I wasn't just dead there, there's no getting out of that hole. So Usher of the Fallen again versus Esper Sentinel.
Yeah, you were talking about how you weren't running into too many mana problems with your deck. We've seen some, but that you weren't able to get a ton of duels. It makes sense seeing the Inspiring Vantage over on Dittert's side, him competing with you for some of those cards.
Right.
Usher offering a trade with either creature.
I'm kind of surprised I wasn't willing to block with the Goblin, although maybe getting the Grim Monolith, there's some sort of plan.
Right. This would actually scare me in Dittert's position.
Yeah, not really sure. I feel like if there's a plan for the Grim Monolith, trading for the Esper Sentinel seems totally fine.
Well, but if there is a plan, why not take 2, enact your plan,
Sure.
and then if Dittert is able to interact, you at least draw a card off the Sentinel.
I feel like the only argument against that is that I don't have anything to deal with the like army in a can that Usher represents. Academy maybe changes the math on that a little bit, but
And that's not true because we've seen your army of 1/2s from your deck.
sure. Those don't fly. Do the other Usher tokens fly?
No, they are humans or warriors or dudes with swords.
Oh yeah, human warriors. I don't know why I thought they were
They're
were
both
spirits.
nice.
Yeah, good word.
I think Usher is maybe a spirit.
Usher is a spirit, yeah. So that Grim Monolith's still not in play. Not really sure why my graveyard is encroaching. Oh, there it goes. Okay.
Zone abuse.
Yeah, zone abuse rampant.
Is this not an end of turn swap clue with Monolith? No, cracking
No,
the clue.
drawing a card.
Okay.
I'm
I
guessing
thought
that monolith was just a bit of bet hedging in case Zerta or something shows up. Not a ton of targets for that goblin in my deck, but
I was really gonna love though the trading the clue for it. It just the efficiency of that 1, 2, 3.
for sure, yeah. Well, getting rid of the Jitte feels pretty good. The Usher doesn't seem like has gotten activated again, which also makes me happy.
Small note, I don't love the way we tapped, not leaving up Goblin Engineer.
Yeah, not really sure the reasoning there. Although Hellrider coming in here is
Yeah, although not as dominating a board as the last time we saw it.
yeah.
The attacks here are not extremely clear, even. But he just sends in with the Usher and the Hellrider, and you just take it all.
Well, took the Hellrider damage. Thinking about a block
Oh,
here.
sure.
It feels like you should get this Hellrider off the table, but
Yeah, Hellrider a strong argument for having made the trades we were talking about on turn 2.
it looks like willing to just take the Usher hit.
And we've seen Solitude already and Mind Collapse. Are there any other things we think could break up this block, or are we just trading and happy with the trade?
Yeah, I can't think of anything that would have been an issue.
Hellrider seems like a pretty strong one to trade off here, but I guess getting the 2/2 back from the Skyclave helps a little bit. And maybe he just feels like he needs to pressure you before your more expensive cards come to bear here.
Yeah, I mean, seeing that Grim Monolith get put in the graveyard was probably spooky, but seeing it not get put into play in all of the turns since then probably neuters that a little bit. Unfortunately.
But have the option to get it back here after having drawn 2 fresh cards, though saying that the bauble that would have traded for it most cleanly gets sacrificed right away. Oh, and after casting the Pyromancer, weren't able to leave up red mana.
Yep, just making more swordmen.
Is this no block on the Usher again?
Yeah, no block on the Usher.
That's surprising. I would assume this Pyromancer would be happy to get in the way.
Mm-hmm. You and me both. You and present me both.
You just have all these little dorks not doing anything.
Yeah.
Surprising you're not willing to toss them in front of the Usher, but maybe you've got a plan in mind.
Okay, well, there's Fury, so maybe that starts
Drawing
to explain
Fury
it.
off of the Pyromancer, just taking the hit. I still think it's maybe worth trading in the Thraben Inspector for gaining 2 life, or setting up the Seasoned Pyromancer in the graveyard, but
Yeah, I mean, it makes the board completely empty instead of leaving a 1/1 behind, so I think that's definitely defensible.
and just empty-handed.
Blocking last turn, I mean, not taking the damage, but
yeah, empty-handed, the Pyromancer in the graveyard is almost as good as it being in play anyway.
Well, Samwise here is gonna bring the Usher back. All of my hard work of casting Fury has been undone.
Yeah, but it's a slow rebuild, and it's hard to attack Usher into an untapped Fury also.
Right.
Right. The math's also awkward. I assume an attack with, if Usher's all we see, I assume Fury gets into the red zone. There's enough, as we've been talking about, tiny creatures still back to block.
Yeah. There's Usher. Follow up. Oh, Parallax Wave.
Parallax Wave makes some of these greedy takes of damage feel extra brutal.
Yeah, Parallax Wave, a card that I cannot remember if I don't feel like I ever saw that in this draft. And if I did, it had to be behind something just so outrageous that I had to let
If
it
I
go
see
because
the engineer getting back Bobble sacked before it even hits play to look at Ditter's top card.
I
It was a
I
card that
remember I
required
know
more
exactly what
investigating.
card it was.
What was it? Or do you
We'll
not
just
want
wait
to
and
tell us
see.
yet?
Yeah.
Because the body language definitely said that it was something.
It is a card that I am of the opinion then and now that I am never beating in this game,
Oh,
which is really unfortunate. It's delayed blast fireball is what it is. So I had to read it because I didn't know what it did. But yeah, because I mean, if it wasn't for the parallax wave, I could do enough damage this turn to him or his board that it doesn't matter. But like with the parallax wave, there's absolutely no shot.
And I wonder how much maybe it's a giveaway to Ditter that you would have to read the card, because Ditter knows you played with a lot of these cards for so long.
I don't think it matter. Well, I guess if he knew it was there, it would definitely matter because it lets him use this parallax wave really aggressively. Um, but
What's Sam's power toughness?
2-1 maybe.
I think a small change I would have made this turn would have been to attack with the Sentinel instead of the Inspector if your plan was that you needed 2 creatures back, because I like the Sentinel being tapped makes it an even more free sack
Yeah, for
to
the engineer.
to just dig a card deeper.
Right.
It probably doesn't matter since you can always block with it and then sack or whatever, but depending on like the order in which he activates Parallax Wave and stuff.
Ditter just taking the damage from this attack. Probably pretty happy about that, but at the same time,
Him having any creatures left over though means that this fireball, it's going to be hard for it not to be lethal. So I think you would have been more happy if he had traded off some.
yeah. Yeah, so just foretelling that fireball down there slightly off screen.
Yeah, it's weird he didn't put it with his other exile card.
I just didn't want to forget about it, maybe. I wish you would have. Would have made winning this game possible.
This might be an awkward Parallax Wave. Just sits in play, never does literally anything.
Well, and then Seasoned Dungeoneer.
Oh,
My favorite mechanic in Magic. Yeah, I mean, maybe he just doesn't need to. Maybe he just attacks and doesn't care, but I feel like he can just Parallax Wave my entire board from here, attack with all of his creatures. Maybe not the entire board. You probably keep at least a counter for something, but you just let the Parallax Wave go away next turn and then delayed blast fireball everything. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the math is looking like here, but they say math is for blockers, so here we are.
yeah. Unfortunately, this blocker has a parallax wave, so he doesn't really need to do much math here.
right. The only math is if he wants to keep Seasoned Pyromancer out of your graveyard to make it easier for his attack to be lethal.
Well, it just doesn't matter with delayed blast fireball, right? He can do 5 damage to me and all my creatures.
Right, but then if that sends Seasoned Pyromancer to the graveyard, then you can activate it to get to
Oh, sure.
blockers.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
conducting himself in such a way like this, where he can then exile Seasoned Pyromancer Fury, leave them exiled, and then cast the Fireball. Or just take 2 off the Pyromancer, though this still is going to end up with it being able to go to the graveyard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like this. Yeah, 100%.
For sure, yeah. I think this is the way to do it.
I think the only difference would have been maybe to take a point of damage or 2 points of damage off of something to keep 1 more attacker. But I guess 1 more attacker isn't lethal, so probably nitpicking at that point as we go on to the next game.
Yeah, on to game 3. I'm feeling thoroughly outmatched here. And on a mulligan, so.
Which I think is surprising in general. I know that normally when we're talking about decks with similar strategies or similar setups, the deck that goes slightly bigger is usually the one that's favored. So I would normally expect your deck to be the one we're seeing pick up a little bit more. But do you think that
Oh no, forgot my
card
bobble
quality?
draw.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I think it's kind of just the situation that Scott's deck ran into against mine, where his deck is just full of so many cards that are generically good, but are just backbreaking against the things that I'm trying to do.
In this position to see Black Lotus.
Yeah, Black Lotus just to delayed blast fireball the Stoneforge Mystic out of play.
I mean, that's got to be nice that it wasn't just like something that's going
for
to
sure.
win the
Yeah,
game,
yeah.
but
Definitely feels better than like any 5-drop he could have played there, but like at the same time. Although with this Grim Monolith, we're still on track for Cauldron next turn if we want it. Although we don't have a Grim Monolith anymore, so.
oh, brutal. I was going to say, and having the Caracas there makes some interaction tricky.
I think that point was, did it remind me that I could bounce Lauren if I wanted to, but
He's so helpful as an opponent.
yeah,
you know?
it's very, very kind of him, yeah.
Just immediately trying to convert some currency here.
Yeah.
What opened on as such a pretty strong draw for you is crumbled to dust pretty quickly.
Yeah, it definitely feels like this was a hand that had a plan A and a plan B, and both of them were just crushed immediately, so.
Interesting to see Colonnade, the discard there.
Yeah,
I
not
guess
sure.
it making a treasure does get us close to Cauldron. It just seems odd to miss a land drop and then discard 1, choosing to keep Cauldron in hand. But I guess the treasures start to get us there somewhat quickly.
Yeah, not sure if maybe there's, well, no, because if there's Academy, I would have played it, so not entirely sure, yeah.
Yeah, it feels like play Colonnade, discard the Cauldron, maybe digging towards something like Fractured Identity. So at the time, this Chandra wasn't in play, so Fractured Identity would have been less appealing.
The only thing I can think of is, yeah, okay, I was going to say the only thing I can think of is if I have a double red spell in hand, I need the treasure to cast it, and
Pretty solid Fury getting his only creature and making Chandra unable to tick down to kill the Fury. You know, that earlier line of discarding Colonnade, it seems there was a plan for it.
Yeah. And one thing we haven't seen out of Ditter too much is removal. We've seen Jitte and Delayed Blast Fireball, but neither the Fireball's already gone, and Jitte, no creatures to equip, so not confident how much interaction there is for this Fury. We've seen a lot of players on red this draft, so not guaranteed that he would have any of the particular red removal.
I think there might have been a Winds of Abandon in the early turns of the first game that we missed, but now we just get to not play Magic. And this is a tough spot because I have to get this Chandra off the table, but I also really want to take the initiative.
But initiative, and he has a creature in play that makes your attacks awkward, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so get rid of the Dungeoneer. Yeah, it kind of feels like we just have to. Which I don't know. In hindsight, maybe it's better to just take the initiative here because
No, I agree with killing Chandra. The second stage is not that bad, and
she can -4 or she can do 4 damage from here, can't she?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Never mind. Yeah. It's more just the thought of like if I do take the initiative away, he can't take it back on his turn, presumably.
oh,
But
that's fair. Just trying to.
Well, but that's also not even true, right? Because he's shown us at least Hellrider, and it's pretty easy to imagine he has other haste creatures. I think killing Chandra is just a very like a safe play, and as Joey was pointing out, the second stage, especially on an empty board of the initiative, is not like
right.
the scariest thing in the world.
Especially if he wants to go the left route that leads to trap to deal you 5, because in his aggro decks, with you still on 14, dealing 5 feels pretty appealing. So there's a chance stage 2 for him is just blank,
Yeah. Well, he did scry, so he went the other way.
which also feels like a win because with
Right.
trap not on the horizon, you're at 14 pretty securely.
Although yeah,
Speaking of haste,
there's a haste creature. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have a Skyclave here, so there's a decision to make, but just gonna take it, which I think is probably fine to do.
especially getting the initiative next turn.
Yeah, that thing has trample, I'm pretty sure, so I don't think Skyclave is ever attacking, or ever blocking, rather, but
Yeah, it having trample is what makes it awkward, though, because you can take the initiative with Skyclave and then trade with Fury for the dinosaur, but
still give it back.
trample means you'd still give the initiative back. Moving pretty quick, though, as you recast.
Zerda. Man, if Zerda was in the opening hand with that Grim Monolith, just another layer of backbreaking to the way this game started.
Yes, I mean, we haven't seen for sure that there was any payoff for infinite mana, but
Yeah, that was certainly lacking.
finding an island just correct here since we have. Actually, we don't have a second red, so island speaking to something like fractured identity more than a second red, which would be seasoned pyromancer.
Right.
I believe those are the only two things that affect that decision since Colonnade's already in the graveyard.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Can't think of any other.
P and Kieran Noir, maybe, but
Well, yeah. So another reason why two have gone red, but blue being the splash color, definitely appealing to pick it up, even if you have none of these cards in hand.
and here comes Parallax Wave to play again. Yep, just
Brutal.
gonna. Yep. Just yeah, getting my currency converter activation before Zerda goes away.
And coming to reclaim the initiative. This is the treasure token or goading.
Yeah, got to be the treasure, I imagine. Knight of Autumn, just gonna take out the currency converter here.
Yeah, it looks like the treasure was gained and then immediately sacked to play this 3-drop here.
Knight of Autumn. Wait a minute. Dinner's
Yeah.
deck has green mana?
There was a Temple Garden that I believe is in play. If not, he could have used the treasure to cast it, but he does have Temple Garden in his deck.
Yeah, I don't think it's in play, but with the treasure, yeah. Is this Ephemerate? Oh, I was going to say
Enlightened Tutor.
Ephemerate doesn't look that good, but
Going to get a Zurin Orb. Wild.
that's got to be spooky.
So I did have Zurin Orb, obviously, and Balance in my sideboard that I presume if I brought in Zurin Orb, I brought in the Balance. But this feels like a put myself in a position to not just die next turn because just staring down lethal. But
that's got to be brutal because it's put yourself in a position to not just die to get a random extra draw, but that random extra draw you would have gotten if you just didn't put Zurin Orb on top.
Mm-hmm. I think at this point the only thing that gets me out of this is
Nothing.
the next two cards I draw being Zuran Orb and Balance. So may as well, I guess, guarantee the first one. Although maybe it's better to guarantee that. But yeah, that's with the Hellrider. It's just even with all the lands going away, it's just. But yeah, like I said, it just felt like very specifically overmatched in this matchup. So
Yeah, 2 matches in a row where there was a lot of hate coming for your deck, and you got it over Matt, but unfortunately the aggro runs alongside all that hate means we'll be watching Ditter move forward from here on, going into, I believe, our finals.
So a clean sweep there sends Dittert into the finals to face off against Joey, looking for a bit of revenge. Just a reminder that because Dittert is coming from the lower bracket here, if he does manage to win the first best of 5, there will be a second best of 5 to determine the grand champion. Not much else to say here, so let's jump right in and see how the finals go.
Back for the grand finals, and for those keeping track at home must have known that the last person was going to be me. I was the player that, thanks to a couple of buys and a couple of good matchups, managed to get to the finals here without getting knocked down to the losers bracket. So we will see how things go. I am also on a red-white deck, 3 on that, 3 on the Reanimator strategy, and Luminarch Aspirant to start for me. I'm a much closer build to what Dittert's doing than to either of us are to what Prose was doing. So just both of us trying to trade aggressive elements. We talked about how Prose and Dittert didn't have much interaction. I'm a player who loves interaction, so I was probably valuing that pretty highly and taking that. I don't know what that card is. We just saw it obliterate the last match. I'm lamenting here. I remember on the day being like, I wish I knew what that card was. I feel like I should. And
Yeah,
I just
delayed
had
blast
no
fireball
clue.
again. Yeah, but it's also worth noting, I think, that you, I believe, knocked Dittert into the losers bracket, correct?
Yes, of my 2 matches, I played against both Bats and Dittert.
Okay.
King of interaction.
That is, yeah. It's a braid, a char, I believe? Or is that something else?
I believe. I can't tell. Maybe that's Char. Still
It
looks
looks
like
like a
Char.
char, yeah.
5 mana Char. Those are going to be the last four points. If I cast that card, it's got to be the last 4 points.
Right.
So I got to be feeling pretty good here. Any turn Lurrus isn't answered implies to me there is no answer for Lurrus, and Lurrus just gets to kind of run away. I wonder, do I put the counter on Lurrus here? Yeah. If there's no answer for it, I want to gain the extra life, especially in this matchup. Just gaining the extra life feels great. And I just don't know that there's a fireball coming for me soon.
Well, it does cost 6, so you're well ahead of the race there.
Interesting. I forgot that it cost that much. I thought it was cheaper on the
Yeah.
foretell. In that case, I'm wondering if it was correct for Dittert to foretell it at all, as opposed to just planning to cast it, since I do have a bunch of small creatures.
Yeah, I think
Gross.
that's yeah, well, yeah, Confluence cleans it up just as well.
I knew he had Confluence. I remember thinking how dumb I was to not put the counter on Aspirant when I knew he had Confluence in his deck. I was beating myself up at the table for that one.
Joey has his own maximum fun magic card.
Yep. And I don't have a splash. We talked a little bit about Prose's blue splash, Dittert's green splash. I have no splash. I got the stupidly powerful red-white cards like Adventurer and just wanted to go all in on casting those. Didn't want to risk missing the mana.
Curious if Ditter has a blue splash we haven't seen, because there's a Hallowed Fountain and a Ralgren Triome in play. Although he does have Flooded Strand, so I wonder if it's... Oh no, that can already get planes, so...
Right, it makes Ralgren make sense. It doesn't make Hollowed Fountain make sense unless he has the Arid Mesa or Scalding Tarn.
Right.
So attacking with my 5/5 here and threatening lethal a couple of different ways here because Trap is going to deal him 5 plus that Char sitting in exile. So even if the board got dealt with, Dittert was dead there. Didn't even seem like he had a way to answer the board. So on to next game here.
There's that Hallowed Fountain again.
Student of Warfare threatening to just go very fast. We mentioned how none of Dittert, myself, or Prose got great mana fixing because we were all taking little bits and pieces of it. Figure of Destiny, another level up creature, so a couple of those in play now. Effectively level up.
Figure of Destiny can level down, though.
I don't. Legitimately never seen that happen.
Oh, I can't imagine you ever would, but
You haven't played against Falcon Shackles very much, then, have you?
it's true.
I can't say I have.
Smuggler's Copter and Lauren here. Yeah.
Dittert's draws have not been quite as impressive as we saw against Prose. He's been a tad bit slower coming out of the gate, which, in the face of Joey's aggression, has really not done him a lot of favors thus far.
Right. Also, the extra removal spells, like we saw Abrade and Char in my hand last game, the extra removal spells mean that it should be easier for me to stunt aggression from him than it will be for him to stunt aggression from me. I don't think I've played enough with Inti yet. I think I misplay with it here somewhat.
Yeah. Decide not to discard.
Yeah, deciding not to discard, I think, makes it just incorrect to have played it. And it's tough. I think I would have, in retrospect, preferred to wait until a turn where I could play it, discard, and most likely be able to cast whatever I exile. But having to play the land before combat just makes it so there was a 0% chance, really, that I could hit anything worth casting. Sacred Foundry also hitting the graveyard, meaning that a white fetch doesn't even make Hallowed Fountain make sense. So there's definitely some kind of blue splash going on here. And
There's that Parallax Wave.
Maybe going to be good enough to start swinging this back. Makes all my level up creatures look very silly.
If nothing else, I mean, it's going to buy some time.
Yeah, has to do it on going to combat and choose to take them all. I feel like I don't hate that if I have anything else to play because it means I'm going to get those creatures back during this game. Oh, what a brutal play.
Battle Slay into Embereth.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting to essentially a 2-for-1 there. The Parallax Wave acting as like probably a gain 20, so definitely doing good work, but ultimately going to be just -1 card.
Just the Raptor again.
Yeah, I have to read all 3, I think there's 3 at this point, different versions of Questing Beast because they all do stuff and it's all different on all of them.
Rampaging Raptor is extending our matches with a dinosaur in them streak, though, so we got to keep that alive. Oh, actually, maybe we lost that in Matt and I's match. Now that I think about it, yeah, no dinosaurs there, so never mind. That streak isn't alive.
Unfortunate. One gap in our otherwise glorious dinosaur day. I don't have an answer with the dinosaur here. I was talking like it was guaranteed I was getting these cards back off of Parallax Wave, but losing, just getting hit for that turn with an extra 2 power presented definitely puts me under more of a threat than I thought I was under.
Yeah, though, I mean, it has Trample. There's like Chain Lightning there for the Usher. and Lurrus with lifelink. So it feels like even with the trample, feels like we'll get to see those creatures come back into play.
If he has Hellrider here,
3, 4, 5. That's only 9 damage with nothing else, and that's not even considering the Lurrus life gain, though.
yeah, I guess Lurrus would be able to trade with Hellrider. You see here, I'm taking a think, leaning in. Just trying to figure out how likely I am to just lose if I don't block, because I really don't want to block. But at the same time,
I also don't want to lose.
yeah, I'm going to get so much value out of getting all these creatures back, like activating Figure and Student is going to eat up a lot of my mana, so maybe I don't need Lurrus. And yeah. Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah, I mean, without something else to do, it's hard to imagine not pumping there as big as he can. But
Yep, I forgot that Dinosaur had that ability just now in the rewatch. I'm sure I was thinking about it on the day going into that block, but oh, I have the Arid Mesa.
I'm not sure that it really changes your decision making at that point, but it does make it sting a little more.
Figure able to become a 4/4 here. Did her flooding out a bit. Figure able to become a 4/4. Yep. Yep. Is this where I make mistakes? No. Okay.
Yeah, so
Oh,
Fiery Confluence, just going to clean that one up. Yep.
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, very thin margins there.
But I think on Diddert's side, if he had just cast Fiery Confluence before combat, dealing 2 to everything and 2 to me, that also is lethal. Because Figure already has
7
damage on
puts
it
you
when
to
it
5.
blocks.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not quite enough.
I've done some investigative journalism here. I reached out to Dittert and asked him what all the blue lands were for. He said that he main decked a True Name Nemesis that was horrible, and he sided it out every time he could.
Okay.
And that he also may have had a negate or a charter course or something, but he also sided out every blue card in post board games. So we don't need to worry about those blue lands anymore.
Okay.
Usher of the Fallen getting ousted here. Interestingly, not shocking from his lands.
Ragavan. Pretty brutal. The story of Prose mentioned earlier that I had played against Dittert previously. I was the one that sent him down to the losers bracket, and those games heavily featured Ragavan. It was actually the reason why I wasn't feeling like super confident about this match going into the grand finals, even though I'd beaten Dittert before. It was off of just turn 1 Ragavans for the most part. But here we see Ragavan returning to play after I take a loss. Shieldbreaker continuing to do good work. Using one of my treasures.
Storm Chaser there.
Yeah, I can never remember the name of this werewolf, despite the fact that I've played with it a ton. I'm a big fan of this card, just giving itself haste the turn you cast it, and then giving all your subsequent creatures haste at least 1 a turn. Really, really dig it. I'm considering not attacking here so that I can block Usher. Specifically, I've used my battle display, and if he goes untapped land, Jitte, equip, I fall way behind this game, and that might have been a knock on the top for the land to cast and equip Jitte. Oh my goodness. I didn't remember that. I wouldn't have said it if I remembered that that's what happened to me, but brutal.
Yeah.
Again, I mentioned our first match, and the only card that seemed like it gave me any trouble our first match was this Jitte, and I don't know for sure that that's what I was considering there, but it was brutal to
That card has
see
that
it
effect
happen.
on games.
I probably can't race it.
There's a braid, so
Oh, I assume that's hitting the Jite.
yeah.
I mean, I have a lot of removal. It would be so greedy to just kill the creature, hope to.
Well, there's no way you're doing that when you're gonna put Ragavan into play, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and this is not a dash Dragavan, but it does get to attack thanks to the werewolf that no one can remember the
true.
name of.
Storm
It's Reckless
Chaser.
Storm
Prose said it.
Chaser.
Okay.
Storm Seeker, sorry. I guess your point is
Oh
proven.
no.
Let's see if Dittert can rain another Haymaker down on this board. And Hellrider is a strong card. I'm not sure it's fighting on the same axes that this game is about currently, but
Yeah, attacking on his side, like I feel like having Ragavan means even if I'm not winning the race, I will win the race if he chooses to just trade. And
Man,
sure enough, chooses
no
to stay
attacks with
back.
Hellrider. It would have felt really good there if we'd had another mana source to be able to attack with Usher and make a 1-1 that turn, I think, because building that up with... Okay, well, never mind. Building nothing up with Hellrider.
Once again with 2 exile zones, I cast Shield Breaker, presumably give it haste. And do I offer the trade with Ragavan? I think I like this against his Parallax Wave deck. Also against Usher, like if he attacks, if I leave only Ragavan back, he attacks with Usher, makes a 1/1. Ragavan never gets to attack anyway. So don't
I'm surprised
mind.
to hear that the match we didn't see of these two decks heavily revolved around Ragavan because it seems like Dittert's deck is good at blocking a Ragavan, but
It's good at blocking Ragavan, but because I have removal and Dittert doesn't, it's just if I land Ragavan, he plays a creature and then I remove it. We kind of see like Dittert got for the most part the good mana, good enough that he thought he could splash blue, which is insane. And I got the removal, and Prose got all the top end. Seems to be the way the divide went on the red-white players. So that's why Ragavan played such a big deal, and it's why Jite was even more of a backbreaker because it's really Dittert's only piece of interaction in the match.
yeah,
Luminarch
that all
here.
tracks.
Right on time to keep the Stormseeker able to attack through the Spellbinder.
Yeah, and here I'm considering attacking with the Luminarch, essentially offering to trade it for Dittert's only creature in play and deal him 5.
Yeah, 5
Yeah,
damage.
I don't hate that. Putting the pressure on while he has a light board and it looks like few cards in hand too.
Yeah, I feel like this is a forced block. I think I like it still in retrospect. I don't know. I wish I had taken more time to think about the decision. Really, I just needed to get that creature off the board because it was so far in the red zone. We see Dittert throughout this game just expertly, slowly creeping everything up. His lands choked out of the normal zone up into the creatures. Definitely like that I did the trade now and put the counter on Storm Boy.
Seeker. Storm Seeker. Storm Boy. I like Storm Boy.
The Storm Lad.
Seeker.
Yeah, 2-turn clock. I mean, my Luris is very far away from getting cast.
Would be quite the magic card to dig out of this hole.
Especially since Fable will presumably help me find a land next turn, and then the Goblin token getting a treasure means I could cast Luris next turn, even though I had just said I was a bit far from casting it.
4.
Yes. Yeah, so this is a decider. Dittert would have to win the next 2 games to reset the bracket and get us a new best of 5, since I'm coming from the winner's side of the bracket, and can't ask for much better than a turn 1 Ragavan. You mentioned that Dittert could possibly have some blockers, but doesn't have one in this exact scenario.
Yeah, nothing exciting off the top of his deck, but maybe this treasure puts a 3-drop into play on your side.
I'm pretty sure it does, if I recall correctly, but maybe I'm wrong, because if it's what I'm thinking, I don't think I even would have gotten the treasure.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'd be pretty annoyed if you just put a 3-drop into play after you. Well, there you go. All right. And it's one of the most feel bad 3-drops to play on turn 2 as well. Like, just
yeah, the best draw possible out of my deck. Like, I don't have any power. It was the one downside when everyone was looking at the decks. Like, I remember looking at Scott's deck, seeing 3 pieces of power. It's like, wow, that's really great. I didn't have any of the power, but the ability to go Ragavan into Adventure, just so brutal. And what a perfect way to cap it off there at the end.
So revenge was not on the table today, as Joey takes down Dittert in the finals and secures himself as the Cubevitational 3 champion, coming in as the #1 overall seed and winning all 3 of the matches needed to wrap the tournament up. Let's see if he has any thoughts on his victory.
yeah, and so we have now officially crowned our new Cubevitational champion. How does it feel?
Feels great. Felt great on the day. It felt like the format changes that we've had for the last couple of invitationals, or just of having that bracket set up in the way it is, because I had done well in the drafts throughout the event, and getting those buys felt important. We saw there was a lot of similar stuff going on with the different decks. We saw that there was power running around, so players could have very explosive draws. Getting to play less matches did feel like it made a big difference for me, as I got to only need to have draws like that a few times, as opposed to some players who strung together more match wins than me, but just unfortunately got knocked down a little bit earlier.
You got the ones that mattered, and that in the end is all that mattered.
Yeah, with Ragavan and Adventurer, easy to pick up a couple like that. Overall, felt great on the day. Felt good about my deck until I saw that there were other red-white drafters, because having Ragavan, Adventurer, a bunch of removal spells, you saw I had swords and other cheap removal. Like, then I saw that there were other red-white drafters. Like, did I miss something? Did I not consider something? But then ended up going great for me.
Yeah, it turns out we just only draft the same, like, 3 decks over and over again in different configurations, so our drafts get a little inbred, it seems like.
Right, and after
Seeing three red white drafters, I think, is a bit abnormal for us. Although I do think that, like, despite sharing the same colors, I think that my deck was on basically a completely different axis from the other two. So aside from colors, I don't know that I would necessarily lump them in as same decks, but
that's fair. The combo side of your deck definitely changes that. After failing to take down the previous Cubevitational with Ragavan, which I feel like, especially in that finals, I had Ragavan a lot there in that match, but failed to get there with it. So having Ragavan be kind of the thing that locked this game so fast felt like finally got to get there with the little broken monkey.
Yep, it's definitely well earned. Congratulations, and hopefully we get a rematch in the next one.
Yeah, I am looking forward to our next season, and hopefully we will be back to show you as much of that as we can as we get that season underway.